3, 2, 1.
今夜もミュージック君へのラッキートレイ笑いあって抱き合って幸せにほらなれるように
Welcome to a new series here on the Weeb Club called Elitist Weeb Bashing. That's the name. That's what we're fucking calling it.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Well, you can come up with something better if you want.
I don't know what that's in reference to. Craftsdwarf just kind of made it up, and I don't know what it means. So, yeah. It was Elitist Weeb Basher. But...
Are we elitist weebs bashing, or are we bashing elitist weebs?
We're definitely not bashing an elitist weeb. He thinks he is. But...
well, I mean, we're not bashing him. We're bashing his video.
Oh, you're right.
Which, to generally explain, like, the premise of this series is that, I forget what the every frame, what was it called? Or
every frame of pause is like the series where
or a problem, or was that
a pause? It was a pause because
it was a pause. Okay, I just heard they nitpick and shit. But
it's the series by Rags and Mahler and J and JXC whatever. They watch bad analytical videos and like pause it, and they make 5-hour ones.
I saw there's like one on a Joker video that's like 11 hours long.
Yeah, I don't know how you could possibly be sitting there for 11 hours recording. To me, it just sounds like they're just saying way too much shit and just kind of derailing. But, you know, this one, we wanted to kind of do this similar thing for AnyTube and for videos where we're not really gonna we're not gonna shit on them. More so, we're going to just try to, as calmly as we can, break apart why the thing is not working.
Yeah. I mean, we probably won't do this for our own content. Like, I'm actually planning on doing full scripted videos explaining why my old stuff is bad. This is more to laser focus on videos we have issues with and, you know, allow us to, you know, break down where they don't succeed, basically.
And boy, do we have issues with this one. If you came from one of the recent seasonals, you hear us referencing a certain video. We never really specify what it is, but this video we've had some problems with. It's something else.
Yeah, and to specify, the video was deleted. I was told it wouldn't be deleted, but then it was, or at least, you know, unlisted, or it's not available for watching on the original channel. Do you want to introduce that channel? Like,
you think I should? I think it's more fitting that you should.
Yeah, the channel is ironically memed. It's fairly small. Part of the reason we know about the memed is that you know, he's contacted us both. There was a bit of a falling out with What a while back, but you know, he's kept up some other, you know, connections with people connected to What still. So myself included, and yeah, I felt like I would, you know, we both talk about the video, since hopefully he'd be more receptive to me. We did exchange DMs. He did say he did not really get any meaningful criticism in his comments, even though this was after I told him, like, yeah, this video is not good. So here we are explaining what in very, you know, I don't know how long this video will turn out, but we'll be explaining in detail why it's not good.
It's probably only going to be as long as like a Weeb Club episode, if we're being honest.
Well, yeah, I haven't done one of these before, so I have no idea.
You know what, man? You're being really like confrontational right now. You're gonna need to settle down, sir. You're gonna need to settle down. I'm gonna have to come over there. You know,
this was not my idea of a calm, rational discussion.
Well, we might not be calm and rational for this video because this video is a review of Boku no Hero Academia Season 4. And before we even start with, like, the content of the video itself, I want you guys to know this video was set to premiere for about a week. During the week that it did come out was the week that the Hero 2 episode came out.
Yeah, so, well, to basically this, yeah, it's a review of the recently concluded season of My Hero Academia that never talks about anything past, like, the first major arc that ends a little bit more than halfway into the season, and the video came out before the second major, no, I guess third major arc, because there was, like, one shorter 2-episode arc.
Yeah, he doesn't even talk about the Bakugo and Todoroki's.
Yeah, he doesn't talk about, like, basically most of the like a fair amount of the content in the season, even though it's a review of that season. Like more, it would be more accurate to say it's a season. It's a review up to like just these episodes, just episode 1 of season 4 to episode 15 or whatever it was, 14, 30. I don't remember exactly.
He promoted it. The original title was "This Sure Went Downhill," and then just put the rating in the description, 5 out of 10. Usually, you would rate something for if you're making a review for a series that you had completed. In general, you would just make a review for a series that you have completed. And this isn't just a problem with this video. There's a lot of people who will make reviews of shows before the show is even done airing. And it makes no sense because you don't necessarily have a full picture of like what it is you're criticizing. Because there might be problems that you have that are addressed later on that you just sort of ignore because you never got past that.
A very common problem I find in videos is that they aren't giving the series they're discussing the respect, and they're only talking about part of it and acting as though like this is a holistic reading when really there is much more of the series. And especially if you're going to like make some kind of review or analytical video or trying to put yourself out there as a person of insight, then you should know more than the average viewer. The average viewer, especially of My Hero Academia, is going to have seen the whole show. So it's a little silly, and a lot of them are also going to have read the manga. So it is a little not very forward thinking, a little short sighted, if you will, to not have, done that research, done that work. And I don't remember if there are any specific points in the video that would have been aided by, proper foresight, but it's again not framing the video as something it isn't, which is a review of season 4, when it's really a review of the first half of season 4.
Very strange. The structure of this video is very strange. It's another problem that you'll see. But I think in order to understand that, we should just jump right into it. What do you say, Craftsdwarf?
Yep.
All right, here we go.
Hi everyone, Gabriel Murr here, and it's time for a review of the new Bones anime Boku no Hero Academia Season 4. Bones is back at it again with another season to their popular Shounen franchise, and I've always been a fan of the studio with their work such as Full Metal Alchemist, Eureka 7, Ouran High School Host Club, Mob Psycho 100, Bungo Stray Dogs, Space Dandy, and even that of Soul Eater, despite the fact that I feel it went to shit once it strayed away from the manga. The studio has made quite a lot in the way of decent anime that are very cutting edge and a breath of fresh air.
To start off with, this might be a little nitpicky. I don't know if I'm the best person to be critiquing mic quality. There's ways you can adjust mic quality. There's ways, and you can sort of tell when someone didn't add like filters or like equalizers to their voice because it doesn't have like it sounds very compressed. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay, yeah, see, I don't add compressors to my thing, but I don't do anything else either, so maybe I'm not the best one to talk either.
Yeah, but that's like a smaller problem that will,
Because I have used compressors in the past, but that was when I was early on when I started using music. But the issue with compression is that it levels it makes everything more even, so that also includes making like the background noises of little pops louder, so it can make the audio worse basically if not like handled properly.
But you'll notice that he says Studio Bones in this review of his. He blames a lot of but he talks mainly about the story. Bones didn't make the story. In fact, Boku no Hero Academia's adaptation of that Bones did is mainly almost like what Vinny would refer to as a one-to-one adaptation.
Panel to frame adaptation, where it makes, not to say it doesn't tweak things here or there, like obviously that things would be framed different. They have to, they're not, panel sizes can vary in size. The frame, has very little variance, if any. So they have to make concessions for that. But overall, it's very like thing happens in manga, things happen. It's almost the same. It's very similar.
And if you're going to like talk about the story, because he does talk about the story. And he does try to connect it to like his idea of like the pacing's weird, but everything he talks about is like related to the actual like fundamental aspects of the story, which again Bones is not responsible for. Horikoshi. In my mind, I kept thinking Hiroyuki Imaishi because I just recorded I just edited the Gurren Lagann episode. But yeah, Horikoshi is the one responsible for the story. He's the one who made it, right? And he has like manga panels in this video, even though he's only talking about the anime.
Yes, he specifically says that he has not read the manga for MHA in this video, yet he still uses manga panels, but he also refers to Studio Bones and not really Horikoshi, even though, you know, one of these people is much more important to the writing of the series than the other. So
it's a very strange choice, and it only gets stranger. Let's get back into it, boys.
I, like many others, was completely on board when I saw that Boku no Hero Academia was coming out, but after a while, the discussions of the show started to get on my nerves. First and foremost, this show is massively overpraised to the point that people will praise it for being subversive over any small thing that it does. It gets to the point where people are calling it a deconstruction for elements that it has that hundreds of other shonens have already done like 100 times better. It's really not a masterpiece like some people seem to think it is.
You want to talk about this one?
Yeah, so this part is kind of fair, you know. He doesn't give examples of people saying the things, but at the same time, it is kind of thing. You know, if you're in Discourse, you'll see someone saying that MHA subverts toxic masculinity because Deku cries when lots of shonen protagonists cry. Luffy, Deku, not Naruto. I said Deku, I meant Naruto.
But what this gives off the impression is that the only reason why he's saying these things and later on in the video is because of the praise that it gets. Like,
yeah, the whole video is framed as like, he thinks it's downhill, and the series is still getting praise, but the video is partly to counter that and say, maybe the series doesn't deserve some of the praise it gets, and this point isn't wrong. I wouldn't say, but go on.
It's not phrased necessarily competently or like fairly enough. Like, if he was going to show examples of, he does show like tweets later on, but they're like tweets of people saying things like pedophilia and like
they're kind of unrelated
stuff
to the overpraise that he's making the claim of here. And I don't think it's that hard to find any of the overpraise, because like I said, there are some mimetic tweets that have gone around because people agree and disagree with them, because some people don't know better, and some people are going like, hey, this is wrong, so that, discussion forms around them and they get lots of attention.
Or he uses like a single thumbnail. It's really not that hard to find a video overpraising MHA. Like, there's entire channels that sort of do that nowadays, like the perfection of X or the revolutionary villain of Shigaraki. And it's like, it's not that hard to find. Show me examples. You're just showing me a visual of MHA season 1 and then a thumbnail of someone else's video. Give me examples of what you're talking about.
At best, it's just a watered-down bastard child of One Punch Man and Hunter x Hunter, both of which I think are vastly superior in every way.
Okay.
Yeah, we knew to stop. We knew to stop right there, because that's a point, like, hold the fuck up. Okay, so One Punch Man I can vaguely understand as an example, because Western-inspired superheroes.
But then you could just say Tiger and Bunny.
Right, why not Tiger and Bunny? Why not, there's lots of, like, I'm trying to think of an example, another, Western-inspired ones.
Inspired superheroes specifically. Like, you would have to, like, look back, but I'm pretty sure if you look back in some manga, you would immediately find examples. But, like, Hunter x Hunter.
That's the weird one, because there is no evident, like, reasoning giving as to why, even though, like, Horikoshi's talked about his influences. He's had interviews with all of the authors of the big three. Naruto's a pretty clear one. Like, there's a Shonen Jump cover that has all the authors of Shonen of the series running at the time drawing their protagonist alongside their like favorite Jump protagonist, or so you have like Luffy with that cursed Goku face, or Goku with the cursed. It's a cursed image, and you see Deku with Naruto. So obviously, like, this is a series that, has influenced Horikoshi in some way. So, One Punch Man and Naruto would make more sense as a comparison. Hunter x Hunter, I don't understand why or in what way that specifically this series might have influenced MHA, and I've never heard Horikoshi say anything to that effect of...
It's sort of baffling because then you have to break it down why he's saying that. And it comes to mind that One Punch Man is regarded as a subversion or a deconstruction of superheroes or shonen things. And then Hunter x Hunter is regarded for the same thing, which, again... If you're following that train of logic, I'm not saying this is what he's saying, but this is what happens when you have to think about why he said those two specific examples. And then when he says things like, Hunter x Hunter and One Punch Man, and then mentions the deconstruction aspect, it makes you sort of think that the only reason he's adding these two is because they're both regarded as deconstructions, which goes against his point that My Hero Academia isn't a deconstruction or a subversion. But
right, and like the only other comparison I think, like, okay, One Punch Man is a superhero thing combined with like, okay, a shonen adventure thing, but yeah, you could use literally any shonen adventure thing. Like, what separates Hunter x Hunter in a way that specifically like ties to MHA? It doesn't make sense, especially when, again, trying to read the destruction aspect into it runs contrary to the claim made just seconds ago about how people overpraise MHA for being subversive and deconstructive when it kind of isn't.
And in the same vein, like, the only reason I can think of for why he said Hunter x Hunter is because Hero Association, Hunter Association. Deku have green hair, Gon have green hair.
And let's hope there's something more to it than that.
But there is no reasoning for why he said that. Again,
right, we're left to speculate because he doesn't give anything to us. Maybe it's in the rest of his videography, but we are only talking about this video, and it's a review. It's framed. It's meant to be accessible content, and here is a reference that is inaccessible.
It's very baffling and confusing.
But I've noticed that there's a lot of uncharitable criticism being thrown at the show for things that I feel are just blatant lies. Many people say things like it's generic and doesn't do anything unique. Lots of people even go to the extent to say that it's poorly written. While I agree that it's overrated, while I think that it is fine if you didn't like it, calling it generic and poorly written just seems a little uncharitable and harsh. So I created a video trying to debunk these arguments about it and explain that I think it does do very unique things, whilst also being a bit of a fun shonen with fun shonen tropes.
So... You notice on screen it said link in the description for this video?
Yeah.
But if you'll remember, there was no actual link in the description back when this video was up.
Where'd that link at, though? Yeah, it's... He brings up the generic and the badly written point. Which, again, it's just very confusing when it jumps around like this. You have to pick a stance and say what is wrong. Like, he said, like, him saying that it's just at best, he said at best, a bastard child of One Punch Man. Well, if he said One Piece, it would be more accurate. One Punch Man and Hunter x Hunter. He is implying that at best that's all it is. And then he has the smug smug Toru face where he says, both of which I think are vastly superior in every way. But then he jumps immediately to the defense of claims that it's generic and badly written.
And again, with no examples to the point where, does it need to be in this video, where he's just talking about his thoughts on season 4, and here he is talking about more of the discourse around MHA in general, which perhaps that's supposed to be like his personal history with the series, like he was mentioning his other video, but...
There's no link.
Yeah, that there was no link to, but yeah, it's still framed fairly, or just presented very awkwardly, like you were saying. So
yeah.
Do I think the show is a masterpiece? Abso-fucking-lutely not. I don't even think it's close, but I did like the show for a lot of the unique things that it was doing, and this video was meant to spell a lot of that out, whilst also trying to talk about how both sides of the argument here are completely wrong. Obviously, my video didn't stop people from saying stupid things about the show. I still see it every day.
So if that's what you did in that video, why are you doing it again? He spends so long on this point, and you'll notice that it goes on for about 6 minutes before he talks about season 4. This video is 19 minutes long.
Yeah, important time frames to keep in mind. We will talk about like how much of the video is spent on what topics.
And then you'll notice that he uses the same Toru image, the same zoom in, and then the same image of the thumbnail, but this time without the words link in the description. Reuse of still images is a very, very common thread you'll be finding throughout this video.
It's very, like, he used some moving footage in, like, the very first clip, but throughout it's definitely a way to avoid copyright by not using moving footage, by just using still images, but it also it just makes for a very, like, not interesting remotely to look at video, and there's some other problems with the visuals, which we will talk about specifically when we get to those points.
Yeah, but it's just at this point, he also mentions the things that My Hero Academia does uniquely, saying that it's like that it does things differently from other shonen, while also making the claim that it does a lot of things that are directly like different, like, you know, that like saying it does things that other shonen do way better. But the things that he does mention that you'll hear him say later on are loneliness and inadequacy as the two things that My Hero Academia does well, that does differently from others.
Right, which again, Mathwas even did a whole video about it. Deku, Naruto, and the insecure shonen protagonist, where she talks about how, you know, I think she mentions Mob as well from Mob Psycho, and she talks about all three of them and how Naruto specifically thinks is the most interesting take on it. Again, like, watch the full video, but or at least closer to what she was specifically looking for.
If you want themes of loneliness, Bleach's Fullbring arc is an entire arc where Ichigo is slowly driven to isolation.
And again, Naruto starts out, like, that's the whole premise. Like, he's, you know, even when he has comrades, he's still, you know, bearing this burden of having the nine-tailed fox within him alone. Like, it's all, you know, it's not to say, you know, MHA doesn't do its, like, you know, have its own spins with it, obviously, but,
to
you know,
claim
there's,
it as unique, yeah, and then
it's a little, right, and these are only, like, you know, these is from just a small pool of series I recognize, and that's, you know, what about Kishimoto's influences? Maybe he was, you know, so yeah, there's always more to consider.
Yeah.
You know, knowing what you don't know is also important when discussing anything, especially broad genres and such. And I would not say that this video is keeping that in mind.
Another thing he said is that my video didn't stop anybody from saying things about the series. No, the idea that any single video is going to make people stop doing bad discourse is sort of very, what is the word I'm looking for? I want to be nice. What's the word I'm looking for before I say the word?
Very, there's basically no real, like, perception regarding even what the videos, like, what any video can accomplish. Like,
arguably the only one you could say is maybe Digibro's series on Sword Art Online.
Right, or maybe, like, you know, or his Defense of Kaon. Like, but these didn't stop opinions from happening. They pushed, you know, an alternate counter opinion that did generally, like, gradually shift, you know, a broader part of the consciousness of the, you know, the group, the fan base, but it didn't, it didn't stop all opposing opinions. That's just not how it works. You could watch any video and you'll see comments on both sides of an argument. It's, you know.
And if you're going to say things like my video specifically, Craftsdwarf mentioned, Mathwas literally made a video about Deku and the inadequacy, you know, the insecure shonen protagonist. So
right. So if, you know, we were going to attribute more, like, you know, things to your video, well, what about other videos that are saying similar things? Or, you know, as an example.
Namely, I see my friends get mad whenever people praise the show by saying things like, watch other anime. If this is the only anime you've seen, I think that's completely fine. I would rather it be this than High School DD, which is an alright show, but gives people a bad impression of what anime is, and is part of the reason people immediately jump to the hentai shit when they think about it. There's also been a fair number of people who would go to the extent to compare Midoriya to Guts, which makes no sense, as those are two different stories with entirely different intents, and yes, I'm guilty of doing the same thing, but it's a bad habit I think we can all learn to stay away from.
There's a lot of things in that one. there's a lot of things that you got to consider when listening to these points. Like, he mentions the fact that he would rather somebody watch Boku no Hero as their first anime instead of High School DD.
Yeah.
Which, again, that when people say watch more than one anime, what they're referring to is that people will say things about Boku no Hero Academia that they say that it does better than the entirety of, or that it does that the entirety of anime does not do. Like, of course, like you'll hear, for example, look, it has a shonen protagonist that cries, or you have the mentor guy that does not die. A lot of things that, like, immediately, if you've watched more than one anime, you know that that's not true, which is what they mean. But to say that, like, I would rather this be their first anime than High School DD, you're, one, missing the point of the reason why people say watch more than one anime. Two, why should it matter if High School DD is their first anime, even especially if they like it?
Yeah, that seems like a kind of elitist point, or maybe it's like based on this assumption of what people will assume from High School DD, but also, like, you're talking about a title that's hardly relevant. Like, I don't understand, like, how many people in 2020 are going to come into anime and High School DD is going to be their first title, as opposed to, like, My Academia. Yeah, I don't. It just seems like a really weird and arbitrary example, and I don't understand. Like, what about if you're gonna give it like a negative example, maybe like Goblin Slayer, something that, I don't know,
that someone will watch because it was like
it's edgy and there's rape in it. Like, that would paint a different picture than something like MHA might, and so. But
High School DD in 2020 is not relevant to the point where a normie would find it. No normie.
Even Goblin Slayer is, fault. Like, I have a normie friend who did watch it, and he read the manga too, because the anime wasn't very good. But yeah, even Goblin Slayer is like that example it's more relevant than High School DD, but it's still not as common today as it would have been once it started.
This sort of comes from, like, the angle of, like, just your own experience, like someone's own experiences. Like, if I came on here and said, yeah, Black Butler and Hetalia, that might have been the common talking points back in the 2000s to the 2010s, but not in 2020 where everything's Kimetsu no Yaiba, even Fairy Tail or Seven Deadly Sins. High School DD is even so far off from all of those things I just mentioned. That's like, why?
Right, and if it's like an anecdotal example, then it's still like he's saying it as if it's supposed to be applicable when it's not. And obviously, like, Kimetsu no Yaiba, that's not a good example because that is it's like not, it's a shonen title that's popular and it's, cool and whatever, like, yeah, so it doesn't, obviously it would make for a good example for what he's trying to say, even though it's a better example for some of the things he's saying, if that makes sense.
I don't know why he's using that as an example at all. I don't know where that tangent came from. And then there was the other thing he said. It was, he said he saw people mentioning Deku to Guts with a tweet that has like 16 likes and 2 retweets.
Right. So he's bringing up this very fringe opinion, which this is something I think is specifically why it's wise to avoid if possible. Where, like, even one viral tweet, like, what are the replies saying? Like, how popular is this opinion? Like, this again, that's this one person making an arbitrary example. How, but if you're going to say, again, bring it up, then there's got to be more than one people who are making this comparison, right? And again, there's no evidence of that. Again, you're far more likely to find comparisons of Deku to Naruto. He's literally called Green Naruto. Why not talk about that?
You could talk about specifically the differences, unless, of course, the IRMM agrees with the idea that Deku is Green Naruto, which, again, it's just the wording's confusing because on top of that, he says, "I've seen people say this," and uses a single example of one tweet to do this instead of multiple to justify the idea that people are saying this, because again, people is plural and not singular.
Right. So, yeah.
The fans of the show aren't exactly top-notch either. Like, the infamous tweet about Bakugo eating. Yeah, he's eating. Good for him or something. You should probably fucking chill, please. You're scaring me.
Something I noticed that he said in there, he mentioned something that he's used this similar type of exampling in his previous video on Ocarina of Time. And then he said, this is a habit you should probably avoid. Didn't he do that earlier with...
No, wait. Oh.
Yeah, he did that earlier with One Punch Man and Hunter x Hunter, saying that Boku no Hero is the bastard child of both.
Right, but they're different stories.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're right. I didn't think about that. He points out, yeah, he did this in an earlier video, but he doesn't point out that he also did it literally earlier in the same video, which... it's not practicing what he's preaching, basically.
Yeah, and then he mentions like Bakugo eating as a bad thing.
I don't know the context of what the tweet, the person making the tweet was intending. Like maybe it was a joke, and that's part of what I don't know.
Basically, all it was just a Boku no Hero fan saying, "Look at my boy Bakugo, he's so great. Look at him eating." Basically, it's just K-pop standing. It's just
okay, so
it's like me when I keep smash over Yohane and say, "Look at Yohane, she's sitting down. Look at how hot she is. I want to drink her piss."
Okay,
like,
that makes sense.
That's what it is, right? That's all it is, and it's harmless. And like, I get that it's irritating.
Okay, yeah. See, and I was like, "Oh, you're scaring me." Like, what? Someone's horny over Bakugo. Who cares? Like, yeah. Once you friend it like that, I'm like, okay, yeah. There's no problem with the tweet. There's no reason to highlight this person.
I clowned on that tweet when it came out because it was funny to clown on it. It's just a funny tweet. You can go, Boku no Hero fans when the characters breathe because they overreact like that. It's funny. But then again, here I am, hypocrite. Yohane breathes and I cream my pants. So it's like I'm not in the position. It's just coming from.
No, that's exactly why it became so normalized for me once you explained it, because I'm friends with you who sleeps, eats, and breathes. Well, you don't. You love to eat Yohane, but
sleeps, eats, and breathes Yohane. Oh my god. Oh no.
Like, that tweet is tame, my friend.
You have not listened to an episode of the Weeb Club. Subscribe today to hear the things we say.
What? I have one thing to say to you.
What?
Yohane's armpits. Okay, we're way off topic. We should get back to the video.
Yeah.
There are also a lot of the fans that whine and cry about how the fan service is blatant pedophilia, and yet they turn right around and write yaoi fanfictions of the male characters because in the grand scheme of things, it's only problematic pedophilia when it's women being looted, not boys.
So he didn't show the author of the second tweet. There's plenty of examples of people being, that kind of hypocrite about this kind of thing, but again, if that is the same person making that second tweet, then it's not shown in the video. In fact, the way that's still a bit obscured kind of implies that it's not, even though he's stating otherwise, which
very
is
confusing. Because you know what else was in that tweet, the first one?
The
name of Horikoshi. Like, he's talking about the show. We're 3 minutes and 21 seconds in. He's talking about the discourse surrounding it rather than the show itself. He has a tweet mentioning Horikoshi, not Studio Bones, when previously he was talking about Studio Bones was the people behind the series. And, he's going to be blaming Bones for a lot of the things that happened later on. This is the only time you ever see Horikoshi or the mention of Horikoshi in a tweet that somebody made about pedophilia, and then he goes on a rant about pedophilia and why it's okay for little boys but not little girls, which I don't know about you.
He's talking about the general sphere because in general, there is more, hypothetical, example is when, a student, the hot teacher, when that happens, like, oh yeah, you go kid, but when it's the reverse, it's suddenly creepy weird. Like, yeah, there is totally a double standard. There is a double standard that exists, but he's also like approaching this like, I do think this is a topic that should be covered because there are things wrong with that first tweet. It's just accusing Horikoshi of pedophilia. Like, there's a lot wrong with that, but he's approaching fairly sensitive subject in a jokey manner that doesn't really probably get across what he thinks or what the discussion is worth, basically. So yeah.
The biggest problem isn't even any of that. Isn't the fact that he used the same Kobayashi reading a newspaper, Tom and Jerry edit again for the second time. It's that we're 3 minutes and 21 seconds in, and he still has not talked about the show. And only other people saying weird things.
Yeah, this is with just the original script in general. There's clearly a lot of tangents that didn't need to be in. In fact, we as I argued earlier, this whole discussion of the discourse is in general a tangent that probably did not need to be in the video. But yeah, again, 3 minutes in, we're not actually discussing the series yet. The show, rather.
I would argue that a lot of Boku no Hero stans are just generally the K-pop stans of anime with that Cisco girl style of humor and obnoxious key smashing and shit. It's nothing you don't see with any other fandom, and complaining about them just kind of brings you back to the Leafy days when he was picking on an autistic dude. That said...
But you're doing that. You're making fun of them in this video.
Yeah, he literally did just seconds ago with the Bakugo tweet. He's saying
back to the Leafy days.
Right, he's admitting that this isn't uncommon in other fandoms. Again, Mr. Love Live Johanna here.
Hey.
And yeah, but he's saying that, oh no, you shouldn't do that. Not like I'm doing, which again doesn't line up with he's not practicing as he's preaching. He's forgetting things that were earlier in the video seconds ago as he's saying them, which it just reads like he just wrote the script and then recorded it and didn't think about it's just very forward minded, not without thinking back on itself whatsoever.
And it sounds like he's about to get into the show, but as you'll come to see, he still will not get to season 4 for a little bit.
Boku no Hero Academia from its first 3 seasons was a show that really caught my attention, and I saw a lot of the potential that it had. I enjoyed the first 3 seasons, not really as masterpieces, but as interesting ideas that could totally turn into something promising in the future. I liked that show for its creative themes of loneliness and inadequacy, its fights being built on strategy and utilizing the environment, and the creativity of the quirks.
Okay. I realized why you mentioned Hunter x Hunter.
Yeah. Now that I'm now... Okay, I'll let you go. I'm gonna hold back.
Yeah. I mean, he just said it right there. The fights rely on strategy and using the environment. Even JoJo's Bizarre Adventure didn't inspire didn't just inspire Togashi regarding the areas, or what was it called, the zones in Yu Yu Hakusho, and that wasn't and that was quite directly like a predecessor to Nen.
Well, it's almost the level of Gigak's video on, Boku no Hero's fights are they're in service of the story or something. What
the fights are the story,
yeah,
and not the they're not just fights. They're in service of they are the story. When again, everything does that.
But he says that Boku no Hero does the unique things like strategy in its fights.
You're right.
Naruto's entire first half is the one where everybody points out the strategy and how they approach it, and even arguably the second half. It's just
there's definitely still the first thing that comes to mind when you mention Naruto was Sasuke versus Deidara, where they had a lot of shit going on with the way their powers were playing off of each other and chakra management, and some of it was maybe a little over the top for some people, but it's still a fight that's using strategy.
If you want another example of another series that everybody jacks off, Full Metal Alchemist is another show with a lot of strategy in its fights, where they have to figure out the material composition of things around them in order to use their alchemy in different ways. You want to keep going further, Attack on Titan is another show with strategy. Even Fairy Tail occasionally has strategy with its fights. It's so weird of a comments like that. And then again, there's the loneliness and inadequacy. Full Metal Alchemist, Edward Elric, Eren Yeager from Attack on Titan. I don't...
Oh, if you're talking about inadequacy, Maka from Soul Eater.
Yeah, that's literally her whole character. And he mentions her before, and...
Lucy from Fairy Tail has a lot of, weakness she has to deal with. It's
if we're gonna like run on this train of like him not keeping up to his own standards, he talks about weird he talks about like weird, you know, key smashing and shit, and like talking like sexualizing characters or something. Shows Maka's ass earlier in the beginning of this video.
Well, he said that as a flaw of Soul Eater.
Yeah.
But even though that's not... Well, though it was weird because he mentioned that as a flaw of anime original content when it's 100% in the manga too. Now I think about it. So...
I think the issue is that was a meme, but it came off as like that was the argument he was making. But,
yeah, well, because if that wasn't the point he was making, then now I realize, well, what point was he making by this joke? Or why was this joke here at all? Which is an excellent question, generally speaking.
And then there's his statement that I don't quite enjoy Boku no Hero as a masterpiece.
Not everything has to be a masterpiece.
What does that mean?
I don't know. I wouldn't call even every... Like, if I use the term masterpiece, I use it very sparingly, and I 100% do not go into things expecting them or wanting them to be masterpieces. Like, I adore Madoka Magica and Aikatsu Stars. One of these I would call a masterpiece, and one of these I wouldn't. And that's based on my own personal definitions and, you know, the general ways I see the term used. I still adore both of them. That doesn't, you know, I don't understand why this I don't know. That's probably just a personal difference.
But that's not even really the issue, is that, like, if he's coming off as, like, an elitist, and not in, like, a good, like, not in a good way at all, because he's saying, it's like, I enjoyed it, not as a masterpiece, but it was fine. You don't need something to be a masterpiece in order to enjoy it for the things that it does well. I enjoy, you know, Blue Exorcist. Doesn't mean I think it's a masterpiece. I enjoy Koisuru Asteroid. It doesn't mean it's a masterpiece. This comes off as a very, like, I only appreciate the finer things in life with my anime.
Yeah, like, if it's not a masterpiece, he can't like it. And that, you know, again, that's probably not what he's intending to say, but at the same time he is saying that, and that's sort of the air it gives off.
And so far, this entire experience has been, like, a weird juggling of statements and opinions that either don't correlate or contradict each other. Very strange. All right.
He did say that the video is very low effort, and it shows, sadly. But even though, you know, the video isn't up anymore, he did have it up. He did, you know, put it up thinking it was good, and yeah. Anyway, moving on.
It's characters who are very creative and are also mostly likable. The way it balanced the world, despite how huge it was, the emotional moments towards the start, which were instantly resonating with me, the beautiful hype moments in the fight scenes, the music, and so on. So what the fuck happened to the show? Like, seriously, what happened? I know manga readers are gonna roll their eyes, but I enjoy watching this show just enough that I can come back to it every year. But not enough that I'm willing to actively go out of my way to read it. It's a fine shonen. It just doesn't have any elements to it, at least yet, that make me care enough about it that I'm willing to actively obsess over it. So I'll watch it instead because I don't care about spoilers and it's not really something I want to read. So I guess with that in mind, I should just come right out and say it. I didn't care for this new season.
Boku no Hero has no drip, no sauce, no elements. I'm good. Ooh.
No elements that make me want to read the manga. Very sad. Very sad. You know, again, like, I don't, you know, do you have to read the manga to discuss the anime? No, I would say you don't have to. As long as, again, you're like, it would be ridiculous to make it MHA Theory. I've only seen 4 seasons. Like, the manga is farther. The manga, like, people are going to know, there's a chance that people will know the questions you're answering. So that's different. But,
to say, like, what happened, right? You're saying what happened to the series and then immediately jumped to the manga reader defense. Because people have this stigma with manga readers, like, oh no, they're the fun readers. But if they're rolling their eyes at you, it's because they know things that you don't. So when you say things like what happened to this show, they're going to roll your eyes at you because it's the same as it has been the entire time. Arguably, the Overhaul arc is one of the most popular arcs in in the entirety of My Hero Academia, aside from, again later on, My Villain Academia and the Endeavor and the arcs with Endeavor, which you don't cover in this video.
Yeah, even the arc, because, your favorite, I believe, is the School Festival, which also ties to the Overhaul arc, but he doesn't talk about it, and because generally speaking, there was a lot of complaining about the adaptation, and it doesn't have the highest score on Mal, but because he asked he mentions the music, what happened? You have a very good case as to why the music's the best it's ever been.
There's a video on my channel if you want to watch that, but and he mentions he says something that's immediately locked into my brain, where he says the characters are very colorful and creative. He's going to later on in this same video say that a lot of the characters don't matter, which, again, we're kind of running in we're running in circles here. There's a lot of things that are being said that are later contradicted. That's a common thread in this video. And then again, you guys like this image? Do you guys like this image? This visual for season 1 and a video review of season 4?
Yeah, now that he's finally bringing up season 4, he's still using the image, and he doesn't stop using the image no matter what season he's talking about. So there's no visual way to differentiate what he's talking about aside from just what he's saying when he does use the image.
So this is a little tip for anybody who's wants to make anime content on their own, who wants to make their own type of videos. There's a rule amongst editors and amongst YouTubers called the 9-second rule, where any clip should last maybe for 9 seconds at most.
Well, I usually stick to 7 just to be safe.
Yeah, 9's the limit. But if you want to avoid copyright, all it takes is taking the episodes, taking 9-second clips at most, and then moving them around. If you want footage in the background, that's all you have to do. There's already compilations of fights, compilations of character things. That's enough for a video. It's more visually interesting, and if you want something to get your point across, you can use footage that correlates. And even if you don't want to use footage, there's images of season 4 promotional material.
Right, you can at least use relevant visuals, and he does do parts of the video where he uses relevant screen caps, but a lot of the time he just lingers on a single image, which again, it's it becomes a video that you don't want to watch, so, it doesn't need to be a video. It could have just been a blog post, if it's just going to be about what he's written or saying basically. Does it justify the visual element?
Yeah, and if you're gonna talk about music again, this is just in my mind now. The one consistent thing that MHA season 4 has gotten praise for is its music. Might+U alone was enough for all of Annie Twitter to explode and say how hype MHA finally gotten. Because Might+U is probably one of, at least for me, Craftsdwarf didn't like it that much, but Might+U's implementation in the episode that it's in is really good. And has gotten praise for a bunch of people for a reason. It got, how many cover songs for it in, a day. I'm not sure where that complaint came from.
Yeah, and that's also interesting to note because the song existed before from the movie, but it's used in the TV show, which got it more attention because it's more watched than the movie, or at least more readily available. But still, that's interesting to note.
Yeah,
because especially because again the video is on season 4 specifically.
This new season just doesn't appeal to me like the last ones did, and it's easily worse than season 3. I'm not saying it's bad. I think it's okay for the most part, but it's not as good as season 2, and God forbid season 1. It seems that season 1 had this magic going for it that many other shows at the time didn't, and ever since then, they just haven't managed to capture that same feeling again, even if there are moments here and there that have some rewarding execution, at least on the level of the iconic scenes in season 1, like the scene where Midoriya is crying as he sits in the dark, with the only light being that of his idol. It's heart-wrenching and easily one of the best scenes in the series.
I just want to say he said a lot of he says, the magic of season 1, the feeling, the feeling it captured, he's using just a lot of this just subjective wording, because, at the end of the day, it is his opinion, but I also don't feel as though the video necessarily, or at least, having watched the season, I haven't watched the older stuff, but, it's not, he doesn't give a strong case, so.
As someone who has watched the anime since it came out, like, he's using a lot of, he's saying a lot of, like, objectivist statements. Like, it's not, like, dear God, not as good as season 1. It's not as good, it's easily worse than season 3. Statements he does not give any reasoning to. Now, Transparently Ironically Memed did help me on a video where I talk about the problem with buzzwords, where using them as a replacement for criticism is not only damaging to, like, discussion in general, but also does not strengthen your points at all. In that span of a minute, he used so almost every single buzzword that you possibly could, like execution and, like, the magic and all the other words that he doesn't give reasoning for. And then he shows the scene with Deku crying at the screen, a scene that I've seen people make fun of, right? And has been surpassed by a bunch of other moments. Like, if you're going to argue that scene has more magic, like, maybe personally to you, but from a wide perspective of most of the anime community, scenes like Eddie jumping into Deku's arms, the performance of Hero 2, Night Eye's death, like, even if you're going to go season 3, which is, you argue, superior, we have the United States of Smash, the Bakugo retrieval arc, and Deku versus Bakugo, right? There's so many that you could, like, pinpoint that happen later on, but he's not giving me reasons, though. He's just proclaiming that as if it's true, and he doesn't say, and, like, the thing about it is, even though, like, opinion is, like, subjectivity is, like, implied, a lot of people, when you use objectivist language, like, it's clearly not, like, when you say things like, it's clearly not better, you're gonna get people pissed off and think
it's leans to being an objectivist statement because it's saying this as an absolute. If it's an absolute truth, then it's not subjective anymore. And I think the issue I take with it is that in using, like, these subjective feelings to justify an objective point, he's framing what is ultimate. Like, if you're gonna say your opinion faded from the series over time and you just, like, you thought it was really good at first and then you just stopped caring about it, that's fair, as long as you frame it as your fault, or maybe not necessarily fault. Like, that's just, interest is, we've talked about in the Weeb Club, interest is the one thing, like, I can never fault someone for not having, no one's obligated to care. I do think they're obligated to give the series, like, if they're going to talk about it, at least some level of respect, but you don't have to care about what's happening, but you don't have to care to talk about it or understand it. And by framing it this way, he frames it as it being the show's fault. The show has decreased, the writing has decreased in quality somehow. The visuals, the music, all these as he said, everything's dipped in some way. That so he claims. So it's not his fault that he's lost interest and still likes the old stuff better over the new stuff. It's the show's fault, and that's the issue with how he frames these points, basically, or at least in my as I see it.
There's also, he mentions that, like, the show no longer has elements that he saw in previous seasons. But, as you'll hear him say throughout this video, he will mention things that the other seasons do, and that he admits the other seasons do. But that contradicts his statement of this series, that it has no elements that the previous seasons did. It's, again, I'm not sure what's happening here, and also we're zooming in on Deku's face on this promotional image for season 1, as he is currently talking about all 3 of the previous seasons.
This season has plenty of these kinds of moments, like the first episode having this touching little scene where an interviewer discovers who is All Might's disciple and takes a picture with him to commemorate a future that he's confident is going to happen. And it's a very sweet moment that honestly solidifies that this is Midoriya's destiny in a way that wasn't cheesy or shit. But this comes after half of the fucking episode giving you recaps of every character, their personality, and their quirk. We have been watching this fucking series for 3 seasons now, and we're on the 4th. We don't need this.
This is a common complaint you get with people talk about exposition stuff. I highly recommend it's a video on Pause and Select side channel where he talks about TV anime. And the big point he raises is that TV anime is made with the assumption that not everyone watching is going to be paying 100% attention. TV in America in the 60s boomed because of housewives. They were able to do their chores and listen to TV. In other words, and, also maybe people didn't, again, it's a show with children, made for children in mind. Maybe they didn't watch all the previous seasons. Maybe they don't know all these characters. And so the point that Joe specifically makes in the video is that when you take language into account, the subtitles, suddenly it stops being TV and you have to watch it like cinema. You have to pay, a movie demands all of your attention because it expects you to be watching in a theater. It expects to have all your attention so it's able to do different things with the way it's with its visual and audio narrative. Where
Which is
TV,
why you'll find a lot of normies getting liking dubbed anime, because then they can experience it how the Japanese will experience it.
Because they don't have to. I found Boku no dubbed really easy to watch because I didn't have to pay my full attention on it. Where if it was subbed, I would, and that makes it kind of hard to watch some series. Where and so again, MHA, the issue is that he's complaining about TV anime for being TV anime, for being accessible, for being something its intended audience doesn't have to pay full attention to. Which again, very common complaint, but that doesn't justify. As a viewer, I don't care for seeing all the quirk quirk, this is their quirk, this is a character name showing up literally every episode. This was a recap episode. If I were binging the show, I'd just skip through it. It's that doesn't bother me. But if you're watching weekly, oh no, there's no real content this week. Sad. As a viewer, I don't care for it, but I'm not going to hold it against the show because again, I understand I understand the medium, I understand what it's doing to fit properly into that medium as a product, because that's ultimately what it is. What 99% of art is. And I don't think it's fair to hold that against the show.
It's also strange because he again makes the complaint I mentioned before that the characters don't matter. They don't do. They're some of them don't do anything, and you don't remember a lot of them. But that's why the names are there, because this is a long-running shonen made for kids and for people to experience passively, where you are 100% not going to remember a lot of their names. You hear me, I can barely remember names most of the time because I have so much to think about. No,
with series with big lots of casts, it's I could name most every One Piece character, but that's because I've been engaged with it for literally well over a decade. Where something even though I still really like stuff like Bleach or Naruto, or even smaller stuff with less characters, I would still could I name every single one? Probably not. And MHA I don't care about as much, so the issue is, of course, if you don't care, you're not going to dedicate as much as your memory to remembering these things. But that's exactly why these things are here, as you were saying, and you were going to say something.
And on top of that, this is a recap episode, the first episode of season 4, because it's a recap for, again, the TV audience who has not seen who has not watched Boku no Hero for a year. And it's a broadcast anime with the first episode that's meant to prime you for the rest of it. And on top of that, he mentions the moment from the recap episode that's filler and non-canon.
Well, he would know, of course, because he hasn't read the manga. Though I was going to say, I don't imagine seasons 2 or 3 are any different.
No.
They start with recap episodes as well, because of course they do, because it's never stopped being a TV anime.
It's I've seen there's at least 2 recap episodes per season. We're actually lucky for this season because we only get 1. It is interesting to me.
Yeah, and that's kind of a contradiction to his point, because he says that the series is going downhill, yet this one is less recap than any other season, except for maybe 1.
And arguably this season has less of the one thing everybody complains about, which is Deku saying, I received this power for one for all. This reminds me of the power of one for all that I got. It has
he does it twice, maybe, in the first half, at most.
Yeah. And then like later on, it's nothing but story elements. But again, this show has no elements that the previous season has for some reason. And again, he mentions that like, yeah, this solidifies that Deku is going to be going to be the number one hero in a way that isn't cheesy or shit. It's a conversation, a talkie scene, like as Digibro put it, a diner scene outside that ends with this man like, taking a picture with him with a cheesy smile. Even though the rest of the show also solidifies the fact that Deku is going to be, the new symbol of peace.
And that's what it explores. Like, that's what the whole episode was doing, is setting up what the season is doing.
But I think what makes it far more annoying is the humor of this show, which was fine in season 1, but after that it just got old. You remember my fairy tale videos in which I explained that fairy tale was boring because the entire cast just depended on different gimmicks to everyone's personality being a running gag that gets regurgitated again and again? I find it funny that so many of you are probably going to hear me say that about fairy tale, and you'll be clowning the shit out of it for fucking days. But the second that I turn towards My Hero, I can bet that a lot of you are going to be like, no, bro, that's cringe. You're going to lose subscriber. They spam the same fucking jokes in this show for every character. Every character has a quirk, pun intended, that basically boils down to a stupid running gag that doesn't go away. Did you know that this grapefruit character was a massive incel and was really horny? Well, they're gonna remind you. Did you know that Bakugo was really pissed off all the time? Well, they're gonna remind you. Did you know that Midoriya is a massive nerd and is obsessed with All Might? Well, they're gonna fucking remind you. These kinds of things were kind of funny, or at least tolerable at first, but through every passing season, they get more and more insufferable and annoying the longer it goes.
So, here's the thing about Fairy Tail. And I hate Fairy Tail, as we all know. I do not like it. Craftsdwarf here his thoughts have changed, but he's the guy who made the tirade on Fairy Tail, right?
I'm now planning. I've been saying it for a while, but I'm making the tirade on the tirade because it's not good. It doesn't hold up. It's bad. It deserves a run through and talk through, just like this. Trust me.
So, for example, the Dragon Slayers are bad with vehicles, right?
Right.
They use that as part of combat later on. That's an actual part of strategy.
Acnologia, the final boss, it becomes like the whole reason that they're able to seal him away in literally the last fight is they managed to lure him onto a boat so he can't move while motion sick so that they could properly seal him away. Like, this running gag that was literally one of the first things established about Natsu's character becomes like a running thing for people like him, Dragon Slayers, and becomes a weakness of the final boss that's key in defeating him.
It's used as strategy for a lot of fights too, because then Natsu will throw other Dragon Slayers into vehicles to fuck him up. Like,
right, or he'll get fucked up because he's on a vehicle, and that like in the start of the Lullaby arc when Kageyama is able to like fuck him over because they're on a train, like he's helpless and he can't do anything. Like it's not like. It's not just like as a humor element, I don't find it funny, but it's 100% used and utilized in the series.
And like, it's used as you previously stated, strategy and tactics in fights. So again, there's that. But then he mentions the running gags from My Hero Academia. Says that, Mineta has grapefruits on his head. I don't know.
One quick nit. Well, this isn't the only time he does it in the video. But he clearly flubs the line, because he says like grapefruits. He didn't re-record it. He didn't fix what he was saying. Like the way he says it, he says grapefruits. Grapefruits are not grapes. They're very different in they're citrus. They're orange.
Their size and their color.
They're bigger. It doesn't make any sense. So he just keeps the flub in the video again, which just feeds into the laziness of its production. And again, not the first time, sadly.
And
he's reducing these characters, he's saying, oh yeah, that reminds you, as if these elements don't get explored. Like Bakugo, they literally, with the children, he doesn't talk about this part because it happens after the overhaul arc, but there's because Bakugo isn't in most of this material. Like, he's not a major character through the stuff that he talks about, rather. But we do see him with all the children with the quirks that, and he compares himself to he's comparing himself as he's saying, you should go this way if you don't want to chase everyone. Like he's we see that he's growing, and then with Deku, he connects to Night Eye because of him being a fan with All Might. Like they're not just reminding you. Like I can see that complaint if you're talking about one of the shonen original content films, because they spend a lot of like a good 10, 15 minutes. Like here's all the characters, here's their thing that they do. They're reminding you like this is a thing. Because, again, it's supposed to be accessible. Like, what if someone who hasn't seen the full series is watching this film? So, that's reminding you for the sake of reminding you, but then this is, like, the actual content of the series, so they're not just reminding you the entire time. They're actually doing something with it, which is, again, he's not doing a service to the material he's discussing, basically.
It's not even like a running gag. It's like fundamentally part of Deku's personality. It's how he's able to evolve his powers. It's how he's able to figure out fighting styles. It's by using his weird nerd power, his nerd like obsession, he's able to derive shoot style from understanding Bakugo and Tenya. That's like an entire part of his character. These are character personalities. Bakugo's anger is a part of his personality. Even if you're gonna pull Midori, like Mineta has like an entire fight where that part of him is challenged.
Right, and explored completely. Yeah, and this is speaking as someone who doesn't particularly care for the humor in MHA. But, again, reducing these traits to just the humor is, disingenuous, and even just like repetition, part of the whole meme culture revolves around referencing thing and just repeating it and reminding you of it, and that's, and doing it in, ways that transform it even a little bit, or just, like, with good timing, is funny. So I don't, repetitive humor doesn't seem, like, inherently bad, basically, but it's framed in this video as such, because, yeah, it can be bad, for sure. But again, there's no explanation as to why. Again, no backing up of the points. No
if
evidence.
We're gonna talk about like that aspect, he mentioned One Punch Man before this. One Punch Man is called One Joke Man for a reason. It's the same joke usually, or like if you take away all the aspects of it, it's just one joke. But a lot of the characters just do one thing, and if you only identify the one thing as the one joke, then yeah, you're going to recognize that it's just one joke. Genos is only there to lose and be funny shonen protagonist robot man. Like,
yeah, just be reductive and reduce the show and all its talking points to the bare essentials so that you could demean it, basically. It's not fair. It's not respecting the material. It's not good.
All right.
I also don't care for... the way he sort of strawmans his audience with, like, the imagined double standard of them, agreeing with his fairy tale points and not agreeing with his MHA points, and us being here, disagreeing with, like, both points, really. But also, like, I did notice, because it was a mistake earlier, I said, like, oh, he keeps bringing up his old content in a review that should be accessible, but I guess it's not. But it's kind of weird. Like, who's this video for? He's referencing his old content now twice. So therefore this content would... Right. And so that would imply that this review is meant to be for his, followers, but MHA is a super popular anime. So I would assume, like, he's talked about other stuff. Like, he's only got, like, less than 2,000 subscribers. So it's not a big channel. It's not like... and even like Digibro is big, but I would expect a lot of his followers to just have watched more than MHA. Like, so doing a review of a super popular anime, who is it for? Like, I guess it's just for his followers to know his thoughts on it. So I guess that's fine. But
but there's ways to implement your previous content. Like for you, Craftsdwarf, you also made a video on My Hero Academia. But when you start talking about other videos that you've made, or other videos that talk about this, you say, these similar things can be mentioned in these videos where I say this, right?
That's usually the extent of it. Or maybe like in a One Piece video, I'll say, well, in this video I brought up this topic, and then I'll go off and sort of explain why that topic associates to the current video, I guess.
Or in my recent video on the beauty of anime concert scenes, I say in there, I'm like, I've talked about lyrics before in a video that you can check out here. And that's the end of it. He spends maybe like 30 seconds, which is actually a long time in terms of viewing when you're on a point in a still image. again,
And on a
still-
tangent, we should say.
Yeah. Which is like, is it meant to bolster your point? Is this a joke? Is this like an inside thing? What is this?
If anything, like I said, based on the strawman, it sounds like he's trying to clown on his audience to support, like, to say, like, oh, people who thought this shouldn't think this. But, well, you know, speaking as audience members who don't think that and also don't think this, you know, we can only disagree with what he's saying. So, you know, by strawmanning his audience, he alienates the people who are outside of the audience. Like, it targets such a specific niche of, like, this isn't even his whole audience. This is a specific part of his audience that watched this one video and had this specific thought. To, like, and again, considering, I don't know what the views are on these videos are, but, you know, he's talking to a very small amount of people.
The views
in
are
a
like
video,
in the hundreds.
Yeah. Right. So he's maybe talking about like one commenter maybe inspired him to make this 30-second tangent, and that is, again, going back to the my issue with some of the tweets he talked about, fringe opinions. He's spending a lot on very little.
It feels a lot of the time like these episodes are maybe 10 or 15 minutes of substance and just 5 minutes of bullshit, which is kind of like watching One Piece, which, unlike this, I would actually be willing to read and have read. That's not to say that everything in this show is bad. Well,
Yeah, so first of all, he says something along the lines of like, you know, this isn't something you'd see in One Piece, but I'm willing to read that one. And it's like, but again, first of all, if you're comparing the anime for both, why would you even mention the manga for One Piece that you would read it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, so, like, how one yes, I have seen the anime for One Piece. It's no, like, and not having seen the anime for MHA, MHA is getting a way better adaptation. Like, you know, for me, that's like, I'd give the One Piece anime a 4, and I'd give the MHA adaptation a 5. Like, you know, for, manga, I was, like, the differential for One Piece is actually much larger than my MHA differential. But, but also, so, you know, again, like, I don't think this is a remotely accurate comparison, because One Piece has, like, look, like, the Dressrosa arc has more episodes than the manga had chapters. That doesn't work. That's just, like, even one chapter per episode for monthly is stretching it, for a monthly series, let alone a weekly series. That's a bit ridiculous. The other thing is, he associates this the One Piece anime has this problem, but I read the manga, so it's fine. But the MHA has this problem, and it's bad. He's blaming the fact that he's not willing to read the manga as, like, this is a detriment to the show, because the series isn't good enough to make him want to read the manga, even though, like, maybe the manga wouldn't have this problem, because the One Piece manga doesn't have the same problem that the One Piece anime does. But he doesn't even want to check that the MHA manga doesn't have the same problem that the MHA anime does. It's a bit baffling to me. Why would you say this? Like, why would you bring up the manga at all at this point?
It's confusing because, like, it's a widely known opinion that the Big Three's anime adaptations butcher the source material. Like, they are not the adaptations that you would ever, like, use as defenses. It's widely agreed that the My Hero Academia anime adaptation is one of, if not, like, is one of the best adaptations of a source material around, in league with adaptations like, again, Kimetsu no Yaiba, or Attack on Titan, or, you know, like, or Assassination Classroom. There's so many that, like, I'm not sure who he's trying to, like, it's this entire video when he starts saying opinions sounds like these are just things he's had amongst friends, but not anything that it sounds like he hasn't considered any of the popular, like, discussion around the series or what's already been said, because what's already been said would contradict what he's saying.
Right, like, those are the, like, if he was going to talk about the fan base opinions and stuff, then maybe talk about the opinions that contradict his and break down why they're wrong and why he's right. But he doesn't do that. He hasn't really made a lot of points in the video. Or not in any depth. He talks about points, but he doesn't go into. I don't think he's gone into a single thing so far. Like, I can't think of anything.
It's like he's combating an invisible enemy that doesn't exist, and that he's not willing to. If it does exist, he's not willing to show us examples of the fact that it exists.
or go into like you can break down why an argument is wrong. You can bring up contrary evidence. You can examine logic and break down why the argument is flawed. As we've been doing that. We've been pointing out his contradictions and using our own insights from outside of the from the show and outside of the show, from the manga, from whatever we have. He could do that, but he's not. And it's such an argumentative video. Like he's looking to disagree with people, but he's not backing up anything he's saying.
It's almost like he's arguing with his own mind or something, because it's like, why mention the fact that I would read One Piece's manga over this? Of course you would. One Piece is the most popular manga series of all time. It's the one that every single fan will say, read the manga, don't watch the anime. What does that mean? I don't understand. Because once you say that, then it makes you appear as if you're a hypocrite. Because, like, why are you willing to read the manga for One Piece and then make this claim about that to compare it to how it's adapting it? But then you aren't willing to do the same for Boku no Hero Academia. Is it because you know that this is a faithful adaptation and that doing so will put holes in your argument? Or is this only in response to somebody that you've had one conversation with that will say something like this?
Yeah, I already said my piece, so we'll move on.
I did like how they continued the themes that I addressed before, loneliness and inadequacy. On top of that, the fights are still really fucking cool, and they even dabble into complex ideas like drug trafficking, which I didn't anticipate. You've got this character with massive anxiety who is constantly scared of his own failures, and he has the ability to eat things and use them as weapons upon eating them. One of my favorite episodes is the episode Sun Eater of the Big Three because of how fucking cool it is. Joy Iranaka of the Shie Hasakai uses a quirk enhancement drug to take control of the basement level to separate the intruders, with Tamaki convincing the others to continue without him as he battles 3 members of the 8 Expendables, overhauls elite enforcers. Basically, you've got these 3 villains with unique quirks. One of them can take any object that their target possesses, instantly bringing it to his hand. One of them can grow a large number of crystals from his body, completely covering his skin with them. And one of them can bite, chew, and digest anything that he is able to come into direct contact with. So because the trio have defense, offense, and a way of removing their opponent's defense or offense, they work together very well. But he eats some of the crystal and uses that as a weapon, which was fucking hype as shit. The way his character is handled is very well done. Tamaki is extremely shy, aloof, depressed, intimidating, and introverted, especially around audiences. He gets nervous very easily when talking to other people, and if his anxiety gets the best of him, Tamaki will often face away and lean to a wall to hide his face from others. This also happens where Tamaki has a bad feeling or feels insulted. While his physical abilities and quirk are outstanding, Tamaki's weakness is that he is very socially awkward and lacks confidence in his own powers. It's smart, honestly, because it shows the importance in believing in yourself and having confidence in your abilities. He feels overwhelmed by the pressure to be perfect, and this has damaged his self-esteem. Tamaki is quick to point out when others are being too optimistic in his pessimistic opinion, and is unable to recognize his own achievements. His pessimism is a direct contrast to Fat Gum's optimism, which I think is a correlation that works very well among the two. It shows that even the most talented people still have their loneliness and inadequacies that they have to deal with in order to get better.
Okay, there's a lot that has to be said about that part. That part is what we call padding, because I was listening to that part where he's talking about Tamaki, Sun Eater of the Big Three, and I'll let you talk about it more because you also use the Sun Eater argument in your video.
I thought I did think that was interesting. So I will say, these videos came out completely independent of each other. Mine was done before his video came, premiered, more or less, because I had someone else edit it. I just delayed on putting it out for various reasons. So obviously any similarities are completely coincidental. We didn't, but it was interesting that we both went over the Tamaki fight. What I have to say about what he said here is that it's bizarre that it reads so much like a Wikipedia summary. He talks about the personality.
Might be the Wikipedia summary, actually.
He talks about he gives the description of some of the things that happen in the episode. He talks about his power, not his powers, but it's really, really, and it's only at the very end does he have a couple lines that don't sound like they're something on Wikipedia necessarily, maybe. but it's just so. It's like you said, it's padding because like this is the most in depth he's gone on anything. But at the end of the day, what?
I'm reading the wiki. It's literally just his Wikipedia. It's literally just Sun Eater's Wikipedia page.
So it's plagiarism.
Yeah. Tamaki is extremely shy, aloof, depressed, intimidating, and introverted, especially around audiences. He gets nervous very easily when talking to other people. If his anxiety gets the best of him, Tamaki will often face sway and lean into a wall to hide his face from others. This also happens whenever Tamaki has a bad feeling or feels insulted. That's literally
what he just said.
That is literally just his personality paragraph, the first paragraph personality tab in the My Hero Academia wiki.
I'm honestly kind of stunned. Like, I knew it sounded like a Wikipedia entry, but I didn't think it literally was one. I didn't think.
I'm reading this literally. I'll link the Wikipedia in the description. But this word line for line is what the Wikipedia is just saying.
So, and that's really sad because this is his review. This is his opinion. This is supposed to be his thoughts, but he's not using his thoughts to sum up what he liked about this series. This is an episode he liked. He spent about 2 minutes explaining this episode is good. I like this character. I liked, what it spoke to regarding, what I personally attached myself to the series. But most of what he's reading isn't his words. It's the MHA Wiki has words. Some anonymous contributor. Maybe there's a name in there. If we check the page history,
it's probably like Deku Fucker 9000. But but like that's what I remember. He said earlier in the part where we talked about the One Piece anime. He mentioned before that like the episodes feel like 15 minutes of actual content and 5 minutes of bullshit. This again comes off as super hypocritical when you are reading the Wikipedia, the wiki pages for these characters and for the synopsis of these episodes.
I mean, I don't want to compare it too much to what I did in my video, because I don't see how it's I don't see how it's relevant there. It makes an interesting point of comparison in general because, like, again, these videos are kind of similar. Like, I also talk a lot about the discourse. I do talk about this fight specifically, but just I don't know. You use your own judgment. We're not going to go through my video. We don't need to be here for that long.
It's just because the only line that he did himself add, there were two. One of which was he eats crystals and it's badass. And then he said that it really displays the themes of loneliness and inadequacy. But
so the part
very,
with the fight and the was also from the Wikia?
No.
Okay, never mind.
I'd have to find the episode summary, and I'm not gonna keep digging.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah. Even if it's not, it's still like at least those 2 points. Like, okay, I learned something about what he likes and what he connected to from this. We're like just describing the fight and the guys and their quirks. Like, that doesn't tell me anything about. That just like this is a review of the show. The only reason to go into detail about these things are for people who didn't watch the show. Like, I watched the show. I read the manga too. Okay, I can't even say that because I kind of forgot until rewatching it.
There's an easy, like, if you were to rewrite this, if one of us was to rewrite this entire paragraph, this entire section would literally just be like, and a really good episode was the episode Sun Eater versus the Shihasakai. Was the episode Sun Eater, the Big Three. In this episode, he fights 3 enemies that directly attack his own powers, but he has to challenge himself in order to go forward. And again, like, if you watch Craftsdwarf's video, he mentions again the whole idea behind this fight.
Yeah, I give a whole full analysis of it, like, but again, it was a different context because the point of that was like, because Gigak's video says like, the fights aren't dull because they're for the story, and my point was like, just because you understand what the fight's in service of, does like I kind of was bored through most of the episode. Like, I appreciated it more, but I was just like, yeah, it was a fight. Like, you can go on the Weeb Club and see me talk about it, and them getting mad at me, being like, whatever.
But, like, there's more, because he says it tackles the themes of loneliness and inadequacy. That's maybe, like, that's part of it. That's like a small part of it.
That's not wrong, but it also is like, well, there's the whole the eating stuff. That's like the big contrast between his powers and his antagonists. Like, he even says like, you guys, like, that's they're spelling out the point for you and asking you to like think about like, because I wouldn't say they quite like say, what it's 100% in service of, but it's also, you just sit down and think about it. It's not, I had to, to write that, but I don't think, it's there. It's definitely there. You just need to, but he's so, yeah.
It's like saying Naruto's about hard work when that's like an aspect of what's actually happening. And there's like more to it than that. There's a lot of boiling down things to like small parts of like what they are, right? Another big problem that you'll notice is that he has uncredited fan art.
I didn't bring that up because this example was the least egregious one, because you can at least see the Twitter handle there, but it's not linked in the description, and this isn't the only piece of fan art he uses. It is the only piece of fan art that has some sort of visual accompanying it that says like, this is from this is that person, and that's only because that person put it on the artwork and he didn't remove it, which would be really shitty, obviously. But he does use fan art later that isn't credited, which is not good.
And if we're going to be talking about Hypocrisy and his claims that the humor is bad, here's the next part.
Oh no.
I love how they handled Togata's I love how they handled Togata's I'm just gonna say it Togata now. I love how they handled Togata's character too.
Okay, that hurt. But so he does a joke where he can't pronounce the name correctly. I don't even like, the biggest issue isn't even necessarily that it wasn't funny, because that could be said about all the humor in the video. Again, personal preference. His name is Mirio. Much easier name to say. I wouldn't even say much easier, because Togata isn't hard to say either.
It's 3 syllables.
Yeah, the Japanese is generally fairly easy to say. Like some of the like sometimes I stumble, but like it's a syllabic language. Once you know how to pronounce each vowel sound, it's all the same. Well, no, that's not. There's other but it's like
unless you're saying Yamamoto Genryusai, right? Like I don't. Like, it's Togata Mirio.
The biggest issue I see Westerners stumble over is like Satsuki for like sat. They'd say like sat ski. Like they move that letter because the only consonant sound you'll end on in Japanese is N, because that's just how the language is structured. Where they read it, Western reads it and they see the T and they're like, oh, that end, that's the end of that syllable, sat. But it's sa ski. It's not really Satsuki, like that. Yeah.
Or Sasuke.
Yeah. Okay.
Or Sasori. It's like a lot of that. It's like, but even if I think we talked about this, me, you, and Vindy. We talked about this. We were like, if we were to do this joke would literally just be, because like, this joke is the same kind of joke that Demo does in his videos, where he'll like have issues pronouncing things, but then he'll give up and call it something else. Like,
he gives up and he calls it, or no, he doesn't even give up. He just says the same thing again.
Like he just says it over and over again, then has like a cut of him in between takes saying, yeah, I'm just going to call him Togata from now on.
Like, he does that Demo joke visually with Lucas, but he doesn't actually call him Lucas. Or he could have like even added another layer where he shows a picture of Lucas but calls him Tintin.
Like, you could literally just go like, I love how they had Tugga Tintin. Like, you could just do that. It's like 5 seconds, and then you can move on with the video. But this directly halts the pacing of the video to like. And there's a lot
between there's like 15 seconds in between like the end of the Sun Eater part and the actually getting to Mirio. Like, he spends quite a bit of a little bit on this joke.
If you listen back, he also pauses a lot, like kind of like he's like waiting for the audience to chuckle.
I mean, that could have just been how we recorded it too. So.
That also would be true, yeah. But another thing is that you noticed he called him Togata, and you mentioned it. His name's Mirio. Or Lemillion.
Right. Like Tamaki, I can kind of, Sun Eater, Tamaki, like those, there's a superhero name and there's the actual name. And Tamaki is like, yeah, that's the one I'd say for that character.
That's the one everybody calls him, yeah.
Right. But like, this one, it's Mirio. Not like, no one calls him Togata.
Like maybe the teachers do. Like one teacher called him Togata-san. But it's like, otherwise it's Mirio.
If you look at, and on Twitter, you see, if you search in one or the other, one of these is going to pop up a lot more relevant examples, because that's the one that's, people are going to associate with this character.
Earlier,
and he kind of does this throughout the video. Like, he says Midoriya, sure, but also just Deku. It's easier to say. He's called it in and out of costume. Just say Deku.
There's also, he called one of the guys from the Shia Saikai, like, he called him by his name, his real name. If you listen to the show, and when I was looking at the wiki to see if it was, plagiarized, he said his name's Mimic. Mimic is 2 syllables. It's like, why would you do that? It's a strange choice either way, any way you go around it.
Yeah, it's, at times it seems like he's, like, deliberately using the most... He does this again, like, later he talks about the Rappa fight, and he mentions Rappa, and doesn't call Rappa by that name. He calls him by the name that I don't remember, because...
We'll see.
No one calls him by that name in the show, except maybe once, and as a full name, probably, but yeah, anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
Midoriya has this kind of dynamic with him, like the feeling of inadequacy when learning that Togata was originally going to be All Might's disciple, and it makes him sort of feel like he's not meant to be All Might's disciple.
So 1, uncredited fan art. 2, the name thing we already talked about. 3, he kind of talks about the whole main point of, like, what Mirio's whole character, I would argue, maybe not the whole character, but, like, much of his character is in service of, like, why was Deku chosen and not Mirio, this talented kid who mastered this quirk already, could definitely master other quirks, like one, one for all. Why isn't why wasn't he chosen? That's the whole, that's like what this conflict is service of. Like, why is, Deku's the one who's crazy enough to save everyone, and Mirio, can't even save one person. Like, it's... And he just sort of frames it as like, oh, maybe this is what the series was trying to say, when
the show almost says that to you blatantly. Like, there's
it's very much saying that, like, it's not a maybe, it's a definite this is what the show is shoving in your face at times.
Like,
So.
if we're gonna go back earlier in this video, he mentions the recap episode where, like, the guy takes a picture of him and says definitively, yeah, this is gonna be his future. That recap episode is literally just what this part of the series is going to be about, what the overhaul arc is about, that Deku is 100% the one meant to have one for all. And it's like but I feel like he's so trapped in his idea of what he thinks the theme of the series is, where he says loneliness and inadequacy.
Right, he can only kind of read the series through that lens, so any other reading kind of becomes difficult, because again, with Tamaki, he's not wrong, but it's not the whole, it's not I wouldn't argue that it's the best possible reading, because I think there's more to say, and the show draws attention to what there is to say by including, like, again, the eating. It's there throughout the fight with the quirks and lines that are said. Like, it's begging you to read into it and say, okay, what is this for? Why are you shoving this in my face? And there.
So so for example, right, like, My Hero Academia's main theme, like the one that you could argue is that like even the series says to you multiple times, and especially in this arc, is what it means to be a hero. What is a hero, right? That's the main theme of the series. From what is a hero, you can derive several things out of that, because again, what a hero is explored through all the aspects of what that one theme means, right? For Tamaki, it's being able to eat your friends in order to advance forward. For Bakugo, it's like learning to work with others in order to win. For Deku, it's his whole character. So, like, loneliness and inadequacy is like maybe one small part of what a hero is.
Right. And mostly the thing is, like, I'm not bringing this up because, like, oh, he didn't read into it enough, therefore it's not a good review. He's saying that the series is going downhill, but he's also not understanding what the series, or he's not showing that he understands what the series is doing writing wise. He's so like I don't fault anyone for not being able to read into things, like, especially if you don't care, like, okay, and I like to read into things because it's fun and it makes me appreciate things more. It doesn't necessarily always make me like them more. In fact, many times I could point out examples where it doesn't. But if you're going to complain about the writing and then proceed to show that you do not understand what the thing you're talking about is saying, then I don't think that's that's very good.
You would never see me talk about, like, make a review of something like, I don't know, fucking, the Call of Duty series, because I haven't actually like played enough to understand what the theming of that is, but I wouldn't make a review and then claim that the story aspects of it have gone downhill if I don't understand what it's trying to say or what it's doing.
Or you wouldn't talk about like how it's so pro-military and violence without actually like reading, well, maybe the conflicts say the conflicts through all the story modes say something else. You wouldn't talk about it as if you know it when you obviously don't.
Like,
right.
Earlier he mentioned like drug trafficking was a thing this series did. Drug trafficking is like flavor text for other things that happen.
And he says complex, but it doesn't go into it. It's just like, it's more like just a world building thing that's the result of the more important conflicts of like, Aries child abuse and such, which we will get into when it's brought up in the video.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
On top of that, you also have the point when he loses his quirk, and it correlates with Midoriya, who was quirkless, and adds weight to both of their characters in a way that I thought was very interesting and unique. Definitely a high note that this season brought on. I also like how they handled Eijiro's character in this season. He was honestly the least interesting character in UA next to the Steel Boy, and even the Steel Boy got more development than he did. So, he gets some here.
One, he's Kirishima. Again, with the using the name that no one calls him by.
His name is Kirishima. Kirishima had already gotten a lot of like growth to this.
Well, even I think framing like saying he needs development to be a good character, like I don't know. I don't remember the series enough to say if he grew, but even just like I think Vindy mentioned is that like him being friends with Bakugo and being in service of Bakugo's growth is good.
Yeah,
even if so even if he's not growing as a character, like I did a whole video, character development isn't the only thing. I talk about him in my MHA video where I point out how like this more goes back to old stuff, but like him not doing anything in those earlier parts is like there's a bigger story being told. So it's like, we hope that all these characters get their context and their limelight eventually. If you do all of that at the start, then the series becomes so like, imagine if MHA started with 20 chapters of focusing on all these characters, and you're like, you're literally almost 3 volumes in the series, and you haven't, who's Deku? You saw him for 1 chapter. Like, you obviously can't, the series is going to have focus, it's going to have characters who are more or less important, and it's going to, shuffle around these characters, and, Bakugo just wasn't in the overall arc. Yeah, he's an important character, but he's not going to be there all the time. And then once the characters do start to be important, they start to show up more, and, because you know them better. So I don't, again, with a series so big, I don't think, I'm not, I don't care about a lot of the characters in Class A, but if I'm not going to bemoan their handling up to this point, because it's a lot of them are getting, like, Alba gets some stuff, or no, Alba, is he the laser beam guy?
Alba, yeah, Alba.
Okay, I didn't remember his name. Surprise. He gets stuff during the school festival and after the overhaul arc, where even just little moments that help to frame him and his relationships with the other characters. It doesn't not every character needs to have some big moment of development for you to even appreciate them or like them, find them a little bit more likable. And Kirishima got moments like that already. So, why is it bad that he didn't have character development until, he doesn't become a particularly good character. You could say that he doesn't become a particularly good character until the overhaul arc, but that's, again, I don't see a problem with that necessarily.
And this is like a comparison to, again, Tetsu, who's only in like 2 chapters.
Right, you're going to say that Kirishima is not as good as Tail Guy, Arm Guy, Sugar Guy, like, who...
At least I can remember Kirishima.
Right, characters who have had absolutely nothing so far. Like, I can't even think of little moments with them. Like, they just exist. Like...
Even currently in the manga, Tail Guy, Arm Guy, Sugar Boy, Animal Boy haven't gotten really anything.
Right, they like Tokoyami has. Froppy's had little stuff here or there, like, and she's not very. I don't care for her particularly, but like.
Vinny cares about her.
Okay. Okay. I got you. So yeah, it's just like saying Kirishima is like the weakest of them, like with the cast is, and he says all of UA, so he's counting Class B too, and I'm pretty sure at this point in the manga, all of Class B has been named, and I'm sorry?
Aside from Pony Sunitori, I can't name any of them.
No. So yeah, it's a very broad claim with, again, like, I'm not going to nitpick and say, oh, does that count the teachers too? Because then you're on another level of, like, excuse me? Like, and again, this is counting, but like, I'm mostly talking about before season 4, like that material, and where I'd still say, like, yeah, just his friendship with Bakugo puts him above the bottom quarter of Class A as far as like interest or relevancy goes. So yeah, that's and yeah, he had his his fight against Tetsu was more than than some of these characters have gotten. So it's just a weird, baffling nonsense kind of like, take that, it's weird. It's weird. I don't get it.
And again, it feeds into that inadequacy theme very well. He pushes himself to new heights when he starts losing his battles, and this even takes a toll on him in the episode that comes right after Red Riot. It's an interesting episode in which these two characters who have defensive abilities, Fat Gum, who has his body as a fat shield, and Eijiro, are teaming up against a group of two, one with offensive abilities and one with defensive abilities, bringing into question how they can defeat him with no offense. It shows that anybody has their own importance, and it especially works because Fat Gum is such an expressive, likable, and interesting character, just bleeding with personality. Eijiro has a moment of fear in which he isn't confident again, inadequacy, and almost loses because of this, and Kendo continues to rain bullet punches on Fat Gum, who continues to analyze the dangerous situation he's in. Eijiro can only sit by and watch as Fat Gum challenges Kendo head-on. Eijiro despairs while Fat Gum appears to struggle against Kendo's endless punches. Hekiji can see the fear in Eijiro's eyes and claims he's already out of the fight. Fat Gum continues to get pulverized by Kendo, however Fat Gum's quirk allows him to absorb the energy of his opponent's attacks by burning away his defensive fat. By building up enough energy, Fat Gum can form a spear that can pierce any shield. Hekiji senses Fat Gum planning something that tells Kendo to finish him quickly. Fat Gum has lost more defensive fat than he expected and might not be able to utilize his energy just yet. Kendo's next attack threatens to defeat Fat Gum, but Red Riot appears at the last minute to protect his mentor. He's determined to live a life without regrets and hardens his body each time after it breaks. He bears Kendo's attack, sacrificing his body to protect Fat Gum. He withstands Kendo's barrage, impressing the villain. Eijiro even tries to strike back, but Hekiji's barrier appears to protect Kendo. Hekiji claims Eijiro's efforts were in vain, but Fat Gum reappears to reveal that it was anything but. Now much skinnier, Fat Gum's fist is supercharged with energy, and he claims to have forged the perfect spear thanks to Red Riot. He claims the villains lost this fight because they underestimated the chivalrous spirit of Red Riot. Fat Gum's punch shatters Hekiji's barrier and sends both villains flying into the wall, defeating them. In this battle of spears and shields, the heroes are victorious. He overcomes his inadequacy, and they win the fight as a result. And it just has this gorgeous, beautiful shot of Fat Gum with his fist out, much skinnier, and he looks fucking badass.
First of all, manga page. An entire manga page just scrolls down, and we're talking about the anime here.
Right, and it's a manga he hasn't read. So
lots of confusion there. Second of all, this is literally just the Wikipedia page, probably. Like, if I went and looked up this episode, it would be the summary of what happened in this episode. And it makes me realize why he's calling these characters the way they are, because it's probably showing their character names and, like, as links in the description, in that paragraph.
But yeah, that seems fair because, like I'm looking at the wiki and yeah, like Kendo, it is like the full names of characters or it's using the it's using the reading this line, Hekiji senses Fat Gum planning to something that tells Kendo to finish him quickly. Like, yeah, the wiki uses these, so he's using the given names of the characters like the wiki does, even though that's not how the show refers to these characters. And
it's padding. It shows that you didn't really pay attention. And even more so, the third thing is that the show tells you these things in dialogue. The literal episode before Fat Gum and Red Riot versus Rappa is literally, they say, we have a spear and a shield, and you are just two shields. You can't beat us. That's literally a line they say at the end of that episode.
Yeah, like, I would say this one maybe even, like, yeah, he brings up, like, the inadequacy thing again. But, it's same issue with the Sun Eater one where he's, like, saying, he's describing things and he's not adding anything to them, and he's like, again, he's arbitrarily explaining, like, why do these particular moments need to be explained? When again, like he's gone more into these moments that he liked than he has on any of his negative points towards anything thus far in this video.
To clarify, we're 13 minutes into this video and he hasn't said a bad thing that I guess a bad moment, a bad example of something bad season 4 has done. He said maybe like general things that like
very general, right?
But he hasn't given exact. But he spent this entire time explaining the point of scenes and the elements and the drip and sauce they have. It's very confusing.
Yeah, and he started talking about the show at about like what, six minutes in.
6 minutes in.
So we're roughly over almost a third, we just finished the second third of the video. Like the first third was exclusively talking about the discourse and again very broad general things. The second third of the video thus far has been things that he liked about the series. So again, in a review of overall, like, where he didn't care about it. And again, if he's framing it as like, oh, this is a controversial opinion, but he's not giving reasonings as like strong reasonings as to why he thinks any of these things. He's just saying that he does.
And then like he says this gorgeous shot of Fat Gum with his fist out. There are other shots you could use for like moments of in this fight of that look gorgeous. That's a still frame of a character. Like just prior to that, he showed the manga, and like the manga looked way better than that one frame.
Right. Because manga anime frames are always going to look worse than manga pages because one is meant to be still images and the other just happens to be still images because you pause it on one. Like,
so I looked up Rappa versus Fat Gum anime on Google Images, and I found it. The same image he used. Which is probably why he used this image. Because it was right there. I found it.
Yeah, because it came up.
And keeping up with the idea that like he's been using literal paragraphs from the wiki page, this might have been the shot that they use in the wiki.
Now on to the stuff he doesn't like.
Badassery is a huge theme in this thing, honestly. There's this really cool Yakuza villain who can deconstruct and reconstruct matter at will, and he deconstructs his own body and morphs someone else's body into his. This is some Akira level shit, let me fucking tell you. You get to see him kill, too. He kills a trans woman and misgenders her afterwards. It's not as bad as it sounds, I promise you, although I do wish the trans woman played at least a bigger role, just because dysphoria would be very interesting with this theme of loneliness and inadequacy. And that's a bit of a missed opportunity, but I'm not going to hold it against them. The point is, it's got its moments, but these moments are kind of all it has going for it.
Starting off first, he says badassery is a huge theme in this. I'm not sure if he means that badassery is a theme in the moments that he likes, or if he literally means badassery is a theme in the series.
Well, either way, I've never heard of badassery being a theme, or it's like unless he just means it as just like a general, like not as theme as in like thematic elements, which we're used to talk about as people talk about writing and stuff, and just a theme and as like a like a motif almost, or it's just common element in general. Like, well, even though the series has no elements apparently, in make him want to read the manga, as he said, but
any way you approach that sentence is weird. Any way you approach it is weird. It's because it's like, it's not uncommon for people to say that something that isn't regarded as a theme is a theme. Like, yes, like 2 weeks ago we had that guy in my server say that one of the themes in Love Live was realism.
That was weird.
So like, I'm not exactly, I'm not exactly now in disbelief of people thinking that like saying things like, I don't know, idealism is a theme.
Right, and I will say, like, okay, if you dear viewer, are wondering, like, okay, what makes something a theme? How I explain it to this person is like, okay, if it's like thematic concepts are one thing. A concept is just an idea. You can apply an idea to anything: power, love, aggression, war, baby badassery. Why not? But if you're saying a work explores this theme, then I'm going to ask you, like, well, okay, what is the message? What is the takeaway you're supposed to draw from, like, the series having this theme? So again, like with the Tamaki fight, with the eating thing, like the takeaway is supposed to be like, if you're friends with someone and you won't, be willing to like hurt them or surpass them, then you're going to be limited. And, Tamaki was limited until he tried to surpass Mirio, and the guys he was fighting weren't willing to hurt each other, even though like that they might have been able to like defeat Tamaki by being willing to like move past each other themselves as trash, right? Like there's a message and takeaway from that fight regarding what it's exploring, and I can make the argument like, here's the thematic message this series is trying to say. And generally, like themes, you can say they're both either concepts or messages. When I hear themes, I usually assume that if it's being brought up in relation to a work, there's something meaningful being explored there that would be worthy of a takeaway, And badassery, like, okay, what am I supposed to take away from these characters, good or evil, being badass? Like, what is the message being said? So it's, that's what I would respond to there, if regarding that topic.
Even more baffling is that he transitions from saying that overhaul, he doesn't even refer him as overhaul. The villain he's talking about, he just shows him on screen, says this Yakuza villain, and then says immediately that he comments on the fact that he misgendered a trans woman after killing her. I understand that Ironically Memed has a sort of political audience. He's already kind of, hinted at that.
He's done a video on the topic, and on transgenderism. But
Overhaul's a villain who
doesn't. And maybe that's kind of why he said like, oh, maybe it's not as bad as it sounds, but it's also, I don't know. It's another weird tangent that maybe didn't need to be there.
But because like if we're gonna explore,
I don't even know if it's true, because in Japanese it's easier to refer to characters with gender neutral terms, but that doesn't come across easily. For case in point, I've read both of them fairly recently, is Hunter x Hunter and Soul Eater. Hunter x Hunter has Neferpito and Soul Eater has Krona. Both of these characters have reasons to believe that in the original language they're being referred to ambiguously with no gender either one way or the other. But both translations use male pronouns, even if so I'm saying, because that just makes more sense in English, because they and using they them to refer to a single person, it's like even discussing it, I still flub sometimes because I'm not used to that, and it's not, and especially when these things were being translated, it wasn't nearly even a thing, or it wasn't like it wasn't
commonly used.
Exactly, not nearly as common as, and even today it's not like as widespread as it necessarily maybe should be. But
even
so I don't. But again, this is a different language. He's talking about how a character is referring to another in a different language without recognizing that maybe the translation wasn't correct. What I'm saying. So, and maybe we did use a gendered, thing. I don't know. But
even ignoring that, right? He Overhaul doesn't know who Magna is. He never learned who Magna was. He just saw that Magna was coming at him and then bitch smacked him out of existence. Like it's he wouldn't know.
I think that brings me to another issue I had with this point is misgendering in general. I think they're like saying it as much kind of like using it like in a context like this where he doesn't know this other character, like he doesn't understand how Magna identifies as, like, nor does he care to, because here's an enemy coming at Overhaul and Overhaul's just going to destroy that enemy. The issue with like misgendering is like there's a clear difference between like accidentally misgendering someone because you don't know and they pass as one or the other. And the real issue with misgendering is when it happens to someone who is willfully ignoring that person's gender expression and right to identity. That's the serious one. Like parents who are rejecting their child's transition and are still referring to them by, the gender they were raised as. Like that's an issue because they're being, not seen as a person with individual, like, right to expression as a being. That's an issue. Me, saying like, I have a trans friend, especially when she first came out, I had issues. I would, refer to them as, or refer to her as like male on accident. And I would be like, fuck, and I don't think that's nearly as serious as like a legitimate misgendering. And
Yeah,
so,
like, you're not trying to kill MathWiz. Like,
no,
that's...
I'm not, and nor am I trying to, like, downplay her identity or, like, I'm not trying to be, like, there's a very clear difference between trying to be offensive and not respect them, because that's what it is. It's a matter of respect, and I don't think the respect of gendering someone correctly really factors into the equation when the first thing Overhaul does is murder them out of self-defense, arguably. Like, it's barely it's a footnote. This is maybe not the best time to bring it up.
Also, it really highlights the fact that he can only view My Hero Academia through the lens of inadequacy and loneliness, because he brings up the point. It's like, having a transgender woman would really be able to explore the themes of loneliness and inadequacy, but that's not a main theme of My Hero Academia.
He's so tunnel visioned on this small thing that he kind of basically refuses to see what else the work is doing, and that's the opposite of what I like to read multiple things into stories, because that's how to best find Bleach is a good example, because like on both parts, because people say, oh, it's just about grief, and then it abandons that theme based on that one video. But then,
first of all, it kind of doesn't, but
no, obviously no, that's the thing, because like the big moment I think of is towards the end, involving Yobak, Ichigo, and Orihime, where you have the themes of like protection and relying on other people, and vengeance and grief. Like, what happens can only be described with multiple themes. So if you're just focusing on one of them, you're gonna get confused and not understand like what the moment is in service of. Like, you have to talk about how the themes like relate to each other, and are like how they are feeding into these things to probably understand what's going on. And
it's like, for example, like the whole like hard work thing with Naruto, and you're making a video about this later on eventually, but it's just fast. It's interesting to me because people always say Naruto abandoned its theme of hard work because Rock Lee didn't get any stronger. If you just think in the context of what Rock Lee's goal was just to prove to the ninja world that you can be a strong ninja without jutsu, and he accomplished that by the end of Chunin.
Yeah.
When he fought against
or
Gaara.
Arguably even before it, but he's the one like he's saying to Sasuke, like, oh, you taught talent, my hard work will beat your talent. But then it turns out, why is the reason Sasuke is so good? Because he worked his ass off as a kid, because his brother was way fucking better than him, and he had a massive insecurity complex about it. Like, he was massively insecure about it. So maybe Rock Lee was wrong, but anyway, that's a little off topic.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, the visual of season 1 is back for everybody.
Fine.
At first, this was fine, because you didn't really have a plot yet.
It goes for a couple more seconds, but I just had to stop.
But now you're actually trying to create a plot, and it's starting to feel like there's nothing going on even when there is. What I mean by this is that the plot points of the show and the logic behind them seem to hide this lens of overdramatic exaggeration.
That was buzzword central.
That was just like, he's like, what I mean by this is, and then a bunch more buzzwords that he doesn't explain, he hasn't explained, he's not going to explain.
What do you mean there's no plot?
Because
you literally read the plot to the show from the wiki.
I don't. Okay, we're supposed to be calm, supposed to be rash. Okay, breathe. No. Okay. But also that was so stupid. I can't. I'm sorry. Like, we're trying to be cool. Just chill. But it's like also like how after. Okay, how is that the part that breaks us?
Because
it's just so stupid.
It's okay. Every story has a plot.
Well, like, my definition of plot, well, because, like, obviously everything has a story. My definition of plot is just the order of events. Like, so, the Chris Nolan film Memento does, I think it's Memento, maybe it's a different film, but it does everything backwards. Like, it shows you the last scene chronologically and then just goes backwards. Madoka, like, if you had, like, A, B, and C chronological, it shows you, like, A, then C with episode 10, and then B with the rest of it. Like,
well, like, okay.
That's when plot. Like, story is, like, the holistic view stepping back. Yeah. Plot is just how events are ordered and structured, and like how that information is delivered to you. So if a series has two events, right? If a series has two events, then it should, like, in media res is how they start with like act 2 and anything, and then they show you like the act 1 stuff later through flashback, through plot. by again restructuring.
If you went through season 1, the wiki, and you went to an episode, it would then say plot summary because there's a plot there.
Right. Like, and in fact, like, if you, like, I noticed this going down the wiki is they'll even order in, like, chronological order for the character pages. Like, for Fatcom, it started with some My Hero Academia vigilante stuff because it happens before the series. Like, that's the way they structure this information where, yeah, it's, if a series has 2 events, like, you know, the plot is, like, is it in this order or in this order? That, like, anything. So he's saying it never had a plot, and now that it does...
That means it didn't exist. He is making a claim that the series did not exist because there was no plot.
Like, the series didn't have, like, a story before now?
Which is even more confusing, because the clear story from season 1 was that Deku is learning to become a hero, because the symbol of peace is dying, or can't fight any longer. So the entire story...
he means, like an ongoing plot, but that doesn't make any sense either because Deku is like the consistent through line through many of the arcs. Like, yeah, it jumps away sometimes for other characters, like the one focused with Todoroki and Bakugo with the license and the kids after the overhaul arc. But it's like I can't even begin to like to suggest what he meant because he doesn't explain it well enough. Nearly, he's using words in ways with definitions that I don't understand apparently. Or at least ones that don't line up with my personal definition, with the definitions I understand it. It
doesn't even line up with the actual definition, like the official definition of the word, because plot is just the order of events. Like, it's how the story is is how the entire thing is structured. That's why plot and story are 2 entirely different things. But
right, the story is kind of like the totality of everything, and so it's like doesn't it? But like you said, buzzword central.
But even then, it's like, if you just go like each season 1 had the villain's invasion, which is the first ignition of every single event that happens after this, because they're still paying for the effects of the League of Villains invading UA.
Even in this season, right? And arguably, like, currently in the manga too. Like, it's that's a good point for like, this is the inciting incident of, like, if you're gonna view the whole series through a broad act structure, there's the start of Act 2. The end of Act 1 is the invasion of school because it breaks the peaceful, like, life of the main characters. And you're right, it changes, like, the League of Villains is active, they're a threat, they're doing things. It changes the series going forward.
It's the crux of why the Hero Association finally gets criticism, because it shows that the symbol of peace is not as strong as it used to be, and now the symbol of peace is gone, which in season 3, a previous season where he said that the series didn't have a plot yet still, you literally have All Might versus All for One of the most plot things of all plot.
So it's just a claim that makes no sense.
It makes me angry. It makes me sad.
You criticize the stupid-ass leg shit from Season 3, and people get mad because it's supposed to be a serious scene with serious motivation behind it. But I don't know how anyone can take a scene where a kid is copying his idol too much by using his arms and comes to the realization that he has fucking legs seriously at all. That's just painfully retarded to the point that it's fucking laughable, I'm sorry.
Okay. So this is him getting the point and dismissing it as stupid, which you can easily do for anything ever. Especially in something like still like shonen stuff, which is naturally silly. Like, you can describe like.
Oh, here's
like
one.
Here's one of my here's my single favorite arc in anything ever. A bunch of pirates have to go rescue a cook from the Tokusatsu villain Super Sentai team family who are evil and abusive. And they're so because their friend is getting married off to the candy cane mafia. Like, it sounds ridiculous and goofy, and it is. It's One Piece. It runs on that. But it's also literally my favorite arc in anything ever because it's great. Like,
or if we're gonna draw from something else, like Hunter x Hunter, you could say that little boy from jungle fights Clown Man with a fishing rod. Like,
yeah. Oh no, my favorite. I love to describe Hunter x Hunter this way because it's true. Two kids meet, become friends. They go to buy a video game. they'd play in the video game, beat it, and then they go to the forest to hunt some bugs. Like, it's just a typical Japanese childhood. But it's also Hunter x Hunter.
Like, it's so easy to do that. But the thing is, like, the leg shit is you can only view it that way if you ignore what the thing, like...
Well, no, he says the meaning. He just says, like, oh, it's stupid because, haha, I found new limbs to break. Like, he's just dismissing, like, again, he's dismissing the meaning to it because he finds it stupid, which is, again, it's a personal thing, but he's saying that personal subjective thing objectively. Everyone should have a problem with this, even though everyone can have that exact same problem with anything, including One Piece and Hunter x Hunter, 2 stories he has stated to like.
But it's not even that Deku discovered that he could use legs. It was like All Might's fundamental move is the punches. The United States of Smash is literally just a punch. All Might never kicks. You never once see him kick in the series. Like, it's never a thing he does. But the idea is that Deku, because he's so obsessed with studying other heroes, combined Tenya, Bakugo, what's his name? The old man.
That's an excellent question. You're asking me the answer.
I'm asking the wrong
MHA,
person.
Yeah, to remember fucking MHA characters.
But basically, he combines the people who are good at maneuvering, because shoot style isn't just kicks. It's moving around like Bakugo and Tenya.
Well, it's also like what we see after the material discusses. He uses equipment, which, like, in All Might's time, equipment, like, it would literally break because he was so strong, and it couldn't be, and it wouldn't be durable enough for him to use it. But times are different now. Better tech exists, and so Deku he used the shoot style with the finger gloves, so he's able to use his hands in a way that he long distance attacks. He could do again something that All Might can't do. He's
like Unga Bunga legs actually is super deep, if you're gonna use the word deep, because there's so much tied to Unga Bunga legs. Like,
yeah, like the characters he's taken from aren't All Might, finding his own path in, passing the torch, but doing different things differently than his predecessor, while still, like, yeah, it's like, I never thought it was stupid. Like, the memes are kind of funny, but, like, taking the humor of the memes to an
extreme, because, like, put it this way, boxing is a fighting style for a reason. Sure, you could say, but why doesn't the boxer just kick people? I don't know. Maybe because his fighting style doesn't incorporate kicks. Like, you can't just tell a boxer, start kicking people, because they're trained only to do punches.
Right, like, even, like, because you talked about MMA before, and one of the things you mentioned is, like, how all MMA fighters have their different backgrounds and they have different strengths and weaknesses because of it. So yeah, like, boxers will have stronger punches than other backgrounds, but they, in MMA, they still have to learn other things, but, like, their focus is still going to be punching. So, like, it's not right. And so Deku was focused too much on that aspect when he should have been brought, like, he would have been more suited for a different fighting style, and he is, and that's what happened. Like,
and, like, do you know how hard it is to kick? Like, it's like you gotta be flexible, you gotta stretch out, because any person can kick, but to kick well is different, right? Deku already.
Sure, yeah, you know more
punch.
about this. You would know more about than me then, because you do more physical stuff.
But, like, Deku already sucks at punching, and you're telling me that he should have just started kicking even though he barely can punch. Right? It's just... Vinny's making a whole video about that. I should stop.
But I'm sure we can go from... Yeah.
Oh, by the way, the image is back.
I know.
We all know.
They do this kind of thing again and again, where no matter how bad an idea is, they do it anyway and try to hide it behind an overdramatic execution. It can sort of work with little side plots like Uraraka having a crush on Midoriya and deciding to put her feelings aside, but here it's so fucking bad to the point that it gets on my nerves. This season just zips by every single idea it has, like it's checking off a list.
I'm confused. Because he says overdramatic execution. Does that mean putting...
what is United States of Smash? If not, dramatic as fuck.
What is Deku crying in front of his computer as a little boy?
Oh, I
if
bet the
not dramatic as
saddest
fuck.
violin soundtrack was playing. Like,
I'm not.
again, yeah, he's saying downhill, but I didn't watch the adaptation, but I have no reason to believe that this is any different.
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. Again, this might be a minority opinion, but it's literally just the same shit as every other season. If only Unga Bunga less animation. That's the only difference.
And even then, like, I don't know, I thought there was some really cool looking shit, and there's some hero stuff, which was also really good. Like, the fact that it was limited worked in its favor, I think. Like, it was, focused on the frames rather than, like, having a big Sakuga moment, so...
Yeah, but, like...
Actually, I just realized that was my favorite episode of the season, probably, but...
No, because... Ember Reviews tweeted... I remember, I say this all the time, but Ember Reviews tweeted, I was like, I got to the episode everybody's complaining about. The still frames are just showing that every single moment he's still fighting. Arguably, the scene would have been infinitely less effective if it was Sakuga the entire time. Because even in the manga, it doesn't show each flowing moment where Mirio is fighting. It's showing like snippets of him getting his ass kicked slowly.
Right, it's not a big choreographed thing. It's just the moments, right?
Where
Like a
he's
montage.
slowly breaking down but not giving up. Like, that's the whole point. Is that you're just seeing like small snippets of the fact that he will not back down.
And they were still. We're kind of off topic, but the point was, the original point was overdramatic, but which is again.
But that's also overdramatic.
Yeah, sure, but it was good, and well, because just saying like whether something was just dramatic or just overdramatic melodramatic, it boils down to preference. Unless you're gonna at least try to explain it, he didn't, so he just like. Again, the series has always like been hyperdramatic. Hyperdramatic would be a better way to describe it because that's pretty, on the note. Like overdramatic implies the negative thing to it, where it's like, yeah, I like, any big moment. It's like when Bakugo escapes and he flies 1 billion fucking feet in the air. Is that not hyperdramatic? Like, and him being rescued and stuff. Like the series has always been like this.
Again,
so...
like you could say this for anything. Again, two boys become friends, play a video game, beat the video game, go to the forest, hunt some bugs. But it's over dramatically executed, as it would be said. But like, it's what is that? What does that mean? Like, it's just. But then he says like, oh, it works for other things, and then mentions Uraraka. Uraraka's basically entire whole thing with Deku. How is that comparable to like what? What does he mean by it's zipping by every idea that it has, like checking off a list?
I don't know. Because like he talked about because he's only. I mean, it's for him to think about what he's saying about ideas. He knows 2 ideas: inadequacy and loneliness. So he's saying it zips by everything it has, but he's not focusing on what's actually there. He's focusing on what he's looking for.
Which is like the whole Naruto bad work thing, or Love Lives about realism shit. It's like,
yeah, I don't like, yeah, I don't know.
Like a checklist. Okay.
Just more buzzwords, but
let's continue.
But the second that there's a suggestion that All Might may potentially die, we say, fuck that, and just give the first character death in the show to someone who hasn't even been in the series but 13 episodes, and for most of those was not even really that present compared to the others. We kill off this character we just introduced who has yet to make an impact on the series instead of the idol that literally needs to die at this point. Yes, it would have been predictable, and they did this so that they could subvert our expectations, kind of like why they had Midoriya inherit a power instead of being quirkless, but that's your own fault when you suggest his death like multiple times. Now would have easily been a good time to kill him off, or actually, the one for all for one fight would have been a good time to kill him off.
okay.
This is where we confirm that he is literally just saying his subjective thoughts as objectivist statements.
So how exactly was Deku getting his powers supposed to be subversive when literally the first chapter is like, I'm gonna, I choose you.
That's not what he was saying was subversive. What he was saying was subversive was All Might not dying was subversive.
He had it. Hold on, he had an aside. I swear he had an aside in there. Yeah, he said, they didn't kill off All Might to subvert expectations, like giving Midoriya a quirk instead of having him be quirkless. That's why the series did it, to subvert your expectations, not because Deku's able to surpass All Might, and that's why he chose him, and that's what the whole season 1 is exploring, and expanding on what was brought up in literally the start of the show that he likes so much, but actually didn't appear to notice.
But, like, this is where it becomes apparent that he's just stating his preferences should have been the thing that happened because he believes that they were objectively what the series is trying to do.
It doesn't make sense for All Might to die this arc because he wasn't in the arc. Night Eye was. All Might is not an active hero anymore.
And if we're going by his logic, he literally just said another character death that was earlier than this. You want to know what it was? The trans woman that got misgendered by the villain who didn't care who she was.
You're right.
And if we're going even further than that, if we're really nitpicking, then you can argue that one of the other first character deaths was All Might's mentor in flashbacks. Like, if that's how far we're going to have with semantics. It's like he's fundamentally misunderstanding why All Might shouldn't have died. And it's not to subvert our expectations.
Which is, again, a reductive reading and doesn't really say much.
It also shows that he's buying into the whole idea, because earlier he was criticizing people for saying that My Hero Academia is deconstructive and subversive,
and or whatever.
And here
but now
he's saying that it is,
that it is, and it should be, and that's good. And because, I just don't like. I can kind of get like, oh, maybe he should, like, that was because I remember some comments like that was the if he's gonna die, it would be during that fight. But he didn't, and it worked for the story, and it's fine. But, like, this makes no, like, he's not involved in things anymore. I don't understand why he must die. Like, why, I don't get it.
There's an obvious reason why he hasn't died yet. It's because it's entirely part of Night Eye's character. Night Eye's entire character is that his power allows him to see the future, and he's such a slave to that power that he's afraid of everything that he might see, because so far it's come true.
Right, because he can't change it because he always tried to change it alone when togetherness is the big thing.
Like the theme of loneliness that is apparently prominent throughout My Hero
that's
Academia.
Right, he didn't even notice his big thing because what happens, I think it's in season 3, like All Might's like, hey, Deku and Bakugo, you guys need to become the number one hero together, like fix each other's weaknesses, and togetherness is instead of loneliness. And Night Eye failed because he was trying to do things alone. He never talked to All Might about the future. He never said, hey, let's get this together. He took on everything alone, and it was only Deku and Eri together who changed the future. Like,
it's so, like,
or everyone together is actually what he says. Everyone in the arc fighting to change the future.
And then he says that he should have died during the one for all for one fight. But the whole point of that arc is that he says it. He says, I need to live on so that I can train Deku to be even stronger than he is now. Because he needs to.
And that was, again, like a season that he liked more than this one. And yet he's saying that it should have had a major narrative departure from what it did for reasons that he doesn't explain. He just says that this would be better.
Oh, man. How much longer do we have of this? Yeah.
4 minutes.
Oh, God. Okay.
I praised this show for not letting plot points that were coming be alluded to for 100 episodes and then do it then, but instead just having them as soon as they're relevant. So, why is the show treating All Might's inevitable death like it may never happen, when it's practically necessary now, given there's nothing he can even add to the show anymore?
Well, imagine being Night Eye, he's just being Night Eye and saying, yeah, the future's inevitable, even though the show shows that it's not inevitable. And maybe such a nihilistic outfit, oh yeah, All Might's inevitably going to die. Wow, I'm not, that's just a really, negative and bleak and shitty outlook to have, isn't it? This character should, that's, oh, he doesn't have anything to offer to the narrative. He does. You explained it 5 seconds ago.
If you watched the school festival arc, he would know that All Might has more to add to the narrative.
But yeah, I didn't finish the show. Where that's also ongoing and has All Might's had more moments of there's a whole big moment in the manga where he talks about how he's glad he lived or something or something like that.
It's so baffling. It's he but then I realized that he said it's the show's fault for suggesting it. No, maybe it's the viewer's fault for not understanding the intent behind the story. Or not reading it correctly.
There's a reason they suggested it, and there's a reason that it didn't happen. Like, that's the whole point, is that it didn't happen. We've been talking about this for like 2 hours. Over 2 hours.
I mean, this is just what what every single time we watch has been like.
Yeah, I know, but
This is the kind of thing Inuyasha did. This is the kind of thing I whined about the One Piece, Bleach, and Naruto anime adaptations doing.
anime adaptations.
But he's talking about the fundamental story aspects. But he's talking about the adaptations. What does he mean?
Like,
by,
because obviously I'm pretty sure I'm surprised he actually brings up Naruto, because I felt like, oh, he must not have seen or read Naruto, because, you know, that's the obvious series to mention when talking about like MHA's influences and, you know, the things it's similar to. But apparently he has seen some of Naruto. But like, what characters he's like, I don't understand what he could possibly be talking about for One Piece. Like, mentor characters who should have died but aren't dead in One Piece? Like the series that people mean about no one dies in One Piece? That the series that little minor who gives a fuck characters can come back and you'd be like, what? How the fuck did that character come back and is doing things and I didn't... That's cool. Like, what character should have died in One Piece? Hello? What characters should have died in any... Like, why
in
would
any
you...
of these, right?
Why would, like, it's so weird. Like, I guess, like, maybe there's a, you know, if you have a legitimate argument for narrative reasons, like, why a character should die or not, but if not, then it's just really mean-spirited. Like, oh man, All Might, this sad man who currently has, like, nothing to live for except for Deku, basically, because he's not a hero, like, or because he can't be a hero anymore. Like, no, he should just die. That's, what the fuck?
Die, old man. Move.
Yeah. You can relate to that in a podcast with me.
The future is now, old man.
You killed me like 50 times already.
I'm so... Maybe if he read the manga, he would know that also a major theme of My Hero Academia is also bringing together both the past and the future. With, you know, the latest developments that a series has been doing. You know, maybe if you watched Gurren Lagann.
Yeah,
know?
Reading into other things helps you read into, you know, like, the more stories you read into, the more you notice patterns, the more you see, like, oh, that's like this. Oh, well, that was also like this. Yeah, and then you'll see what's already there. It's... Anyway.
Boku no Hero never did this, and that's what I praised it for. Like, the fact that it could come out year by year made it so that there weren't any filler arcs to have this problem. So why does it have this fucking problem? On top of that, the fast pacing that used to make this show so unique is starting to get a little bit by the numbers and sloppy.
What?
Okay, so he's talking about how does MHA have the same problem as filler? Like, I don't, because the issue with filler is that it's obviously not written by the same author, so it doesn't add to the story in the same way, if at all. If worst case, it might contradict it. You know, it obviously can't advance the characters in a meaningful way. Like, not that, but again, you know, anime original content are definitely good. Again, I've said it before. Hidamari Sketch, literally my favorite anime, adds a bunch. It's good, but like, yeah, I just don't know what he's saying or wants to say or is trying to say.
I think he's implying that the overhaul arc feels like filler, which is so confusing because it's literally one of the most important arcs in the series.
And it's also really weird because he opens up saying that the actual filler, the photography guy, was good and wholesome and not cheesy, but that was filler.
But it was also super cheesy. But
yeah, no, that's but the overhaul arc feels like filler, even though it's not it. And I guess he's saying, oh, the pacing is sloppy now. I have no comment because I haven't watched the previous seasons. I doubt that it's a particular sore spot, especially when, again, like, this is the MHA adaptation, and we've already talked about the Bleach, Naruto, and One Piece adaptations. Like, you know, if you're going to say you have issues with the pacing of those, I'm not going to blame you. But
he also mentions that the pacing in My Hero Academia is unique. It's really not. if you're looking at Shonen, if you're just looking at Shonen Jump adaptations, we got Nisekoi, Assassination Classroom, Kimetsu no Yaiba. You know, there's a bunch of other shows, or Shokugeki no Soma. Like,
don't.
Shokugeki no Soma, Go no Sada. But like, there are so Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. If you're gonna go outside that, Ao no Exorcist. Like, there's so many other shows that have adapted their source material in tighter packages. My Hero Academia is not unique in this aspect.
He even talks about Soul Eater at the start.
It's like, it's one thing to first claim that a bunch of other shonen have done something, and then say that this show is unique for something that other shows have done. These contradictions continue.
Shows that he's recognized for doing what.
And we were still looking at the same image of season 1.
You'll never let that go.
No, because it's confusing, and it gets worse. This next point.
God.
I get that I'm supposed to care about this little fucking lolly, but why? Because she's a cute little girl with powers? Why do we need to care? Like, I'm supposed to feel for Midoriya and Togata because they didn't save her immediately when they saw her or something? The wait for that isn't there, and they desperately want it to be. So they're gonna constantly tell the viewer that it's a huge deal until you get it.
So speaking of mean-spirited, takes.
I'm not gonna say that he is a sociopath.
I think he's just really stupid.
Well,
oh no, we weren't gonna make fun of him as a person, just as content.
Okay. I'll say this in general. I'm not gonna say people who don't understand why you should feel bad for Eddie are sociopaths. But My Hero Academia makes it clear that Eddie is an abused child who never knew her mother and was taken away from her, is used...
Or never knew her father and was taken... Because,
was used for science experiments, has no one around her to, like, relate to, which ties into the theme of loneliness. Can't use her powers correctly, which ties into the theme of inadequacy. And we feel bad for her because she's a little girl with powers,
which we don't learn at first.
Which we don't know.
Because he's saying we should feel for her maybe because Deku and Mirio didn't fail to save her, which is why they're beaten up about it. But it's like Deku literally held her in his arms, noticed she was fucking terrified when Overhaul appeared behind her. And he wanted to, maybe I should get this child showing symptoms of abuse out of the hands of her abuser.
Because, if I saw an abused child on the street, I would go, why do I feel bad for him? Because he has powers?
Damn. I don't understand how you can walk away from this series with thinking, I don't have a reason to if you don't care for Eri, okay, she's a fictional character at the end of the day. But if you're gonna say there's no reason to care for an abused child, I don't.
I'm sorry, that breaks me every time.
Well, especially when because you pointed out this before, but ironically, Meme seems to dislike Overhaul more for misgendering a character that he doesn't know than abusing a child, isolating a child, doing human experimentation on a child.
It's like saying that you feel bad for a Twitter user who's trans who got misgendered once, right? Because he doesn't mention the fact that Magna got killed. He just mentions the fact that she got that she got misgendered, which is apparently a higher crime than getting murdered. But it's like saying that's worse than minority child who got beat up by the police for existing.
There's a little sense of mistaken priorities there, and it's not a good look. It's bad. This is a bad point.
Like I said, almost sociopathic. And it makes me disgusted. It kind of creeps me out.
I'm not sure if I'd go that far, but it's a yikes, dog.
Alright.
The little plotline about drug trafficking was interesting until you learn his actual plan and realize that it's not near as smart as it was built up to be. This villain they hype up as scary just kind of gets knocked over by Midoriya in a few seconds. But it's okay, because the future man, who dies, read the future, but his prediction was wrong, which means Midoriya is gonna overcome his fate. Shut the fuck up. They have all of the elements to make this profound here. They just don't use them with enough passion. And it's sad, because the first season was filled with passion.
I'm so mad. I'm so mad. I'm trying. I'm really trying.
Okay. I hate arguments about like passion or laziness and stuff. Like, no, animators, they work themselves to, you know, high stress and, you know, death. They're still working. Anime's
Right
still
now,
coming
in
out.
the coronavirus apocalypse.
Basically, like, you know, Japan just kind of like, you know, whatever, like anime, you know, animators they're still gonna work themselves to death during a pandemic. Like, but no, none of them have any passion. Manga authors, they're still gonna work with their assistants. The manga we're reading is still coming out during a pandemic.
No drip, no sauce, no passion.
No passion. None of them care about what they're doing at all. You know, we've explained what these elements are in service of. Like, we've already done that. Like, they're obviously there. They're obviously like he says, oh, Deku, he surpasses fate. That's not what fucking happened. Everyone worked together to surpass the fate that one person saw and was too afraid to do anything about, or was too afraid, or too, you know, in the past, like he didn't understand his own powers, basically, because of loneliness and inadequacy. God,
it's like, okay, so he mentions, like, you know, drug trafficking and that Overhaul's plan was stupid. Did you listen to his plan? His plan was to use the avenues of, like, the drug trafficking that he had, as well as the entire hatred, like the hatred and the growing inadequacy of the Hero Association that the world has because of the events of Season 1 when the League of Villains invaded UA.
Season 1 that didn't have any plot.
No plot, no drip, no sauce. And it's like, his plan wasn't stupid. It was probably actually would have worked. It would have 100% worked. If the League of Villains got their hands on the ammunition, they would have dominated the heroes. Any villain would have gotten it and would have dominated the Hero Association because there was nothing they could do about it.
Yeah, like Mirio got completely, like, he doesn't have his quirk anymore. Like, that could happen to literally anyone. Literally, like, look at all the list of top heroes. Boom, no quirks, no Hero Association. Because that's you know, obviously his big contradiction why he failed. You know, he's afraid of quirks, yet he was deeply afraid of losing his own. But, like, you know, he's trying to take away all quirks, but he's ultimately, at the end of the day, he really just wants to monopolize quirks, which is just what All for One was doing.
And
so,
you know, I guess time is a metaphysical construct. So when Overhaul was beaten over the span of 3 episodes by Deku, you could, I guess, if you were to travel through space at speeds faster than light, theoretically, yes.
Yeah, he was just knocked over. Seconds. He was just knocked over in a couple seconds. Yeah.
You know, if I was a being that, if I was a multiversal being who was omnipresent, experienced all things at once, perhaps I would see Overhaul being beaten over 3 episodes as a couple seconds of him getting knocked over. I'm sorry. I'm trying. I'm really trying.
No, I kind of get, like, see, because how many times have you seen this video now?
This is the 5th.
I thought it was like the 6th at least, because I thought you'd seen it 5 times.
You know what? I've lost count.
Oh no, because it's only the 3rd time for me, but it's also like there's still parts of it that are because we're trying.
I'm really trying not to lose my mind right now. We're almost.
It just zips by this whole Yakuza plotline without giving me much room to breathe. But unlike the arcs preceding it, like the Stain arc, they don't balance the context in the short time they have well enough that it gives the arc the same effect that the previous ones did. I find it kind of insufferable how every single one of these arcs, man, they'll tell you straight up, things aren't gonna go well for our heroes. Then it does, and the worst you get is a character death for someone who we barely fucking know, or just knew for like half of a season.
So he's complaining that it subverts your expectations. Because it says thing that is gonna happen, and then the thing doesn't happen. Subversion.
Okay. So, I'm so confused as to what his argument is, because when he compared it to filler...
you just get, like, he says Stain works some... Oh, it gives the context in the short amount... Buzzwords. Well, because, like, in general, like, Overhaul is... because, again, if you knew anything about the manga, you would know that Horikoshi had... Like, the reason that the series is so fast at the start is because he'd been canceled twice. And I've heard that there's actually a rule at Jump is if you get canceled 3 times, they just won't run your series in the magazine anymore because, you failed too many times, which is pretty non-shonen if you ask me.
Which is pretty, like, tying in with the themes of inadequacy.
And, right. And so this is literally Horikoshi's last chance in Jump if that is the case. So the reason he was really fast was because, like, he just wanted to get to the point, get cool shit happening, to get people's interest going. So Overhaul, like, he'd been doing enough of the manga that he decided to slow it down and do a long arc. And it still wasn't even, like, that long. Like, how long was it? Like, 30 chapters? 40 chapters?
Yeah, it's like 39 chapters. But
yeah,
it's still
so it's
the longest arc in MHA.
Right, which is pretty short when you look at, like, Naruto practically starts off with the Land of Waves, which is almost that long. Like,
the Soul Society arc is, like, what, 20 volumes?
Yeah, and One Piece, obviously, like, Alabasta, like, you're getting into long arcs, like, even past the sagas, like, Alabasta happens at the same range that this would have happened, but it's also longer, so it's, like, the scale of it is, like, even for MHA standards, it's really long, but he's still, like, so used to doing it fast that so it's, like, there's a, different pacing that happens when you have a long arc like that after being so used to short arcs, but that's not a bad thing. But are you gonna and I definitely he shouldn't be complaining about, like, I don't think he is complaining about long arcs because, like, obviously, like, Hunter x Hunter, almost half of the 2011 anime is just one arc.
Chimera Ant
arc, right?
It's like no, but it's like he complained earlier that the problem was, like, filler. But filler's problem is that it draws out the length of the story. But now he's complaining that it's moving too fast?
Yeah, it zips through all the ideas it has, but it
zips through all the drip. Exhausts all the sauce, right? It's like... Oh my god.
We're trying.
You've got this fight with Uraraka and Tsuyu fighting these two giant Quark villains, and there was hardly any time to register the fight at all. It was boom, boom, and there you go, fight finished.
Okay, that isn't actually really that wrong. Like, it's just a quick little fight.
That's actually just a real complaint, though.
Yeah, like, so this is, like, okay, and he actually kind of, he's using this as evidence to his other points, like, and this is the thing that he says that, like, yeah, he's right. It's just the thing that happened. Like, this is the one time in the video he's done that. So, like, even though it's like, yeah, this is the best thing you've said this entire video, and actually evidence to your point, but it's only just, like, it's also just this one thing, and the rest of it I don't agree with it at all. Like,
if Vindy was here too, he would point out that this fight doesn't really matter, which is, like, yeah, but that's more of a problem with Horikoshi writing his female characters, if anything.
Right, like, maybe they shouldn't have even been in the arc if they weren't going to contribute that much at the end of the day, like... And yeah, it is really weird that it just happens to be the female characters in this position, which is sad.
Yeah, but Eri's just a little girl with powers.
Stop.
I'm sorry.
No time to register what the Giants did during the fight, or the time to immerse yourself into Uraraka and Tsuyu's teamwork in dealing with the villains. It just kind of zipped by. I said before that the show was fast-paced, but it didn't feel rushed. It's starting to feel extremely rushed when it does this kind of shit. Like with Chisaki fighting Mirio, which is littered with these obnoxious still frames, first of all, but also this obnoxiously long flashback scene. I get that this is a shonen, but this is such a by-the-numbers fight that I don't care.
We talked about that. I don't know
about that, yeah.
Yeah, do we? Okay,
We'll just say this real quick.
Don't
just keep
okay.
more buzzwords. Unga Bunga still frames.
Yeah, this one's somehow by the numbers.
Look. Okay, I gotta go hard once. The reason why I keep mentioning the picture is because you mentioned obnoxious still frames, and this entire video is obnoxious still frames.
The difference is that in the Miro fight, they were like the frames were like well composed and the direction was good, so that like even if there was no like motion, there was still like a flow to the images, you know. Like it worked. It was, you know, really well put together and edited, which is something I can't say about this video.
Let me tell you something, guys. This video, when I downloaded it, is 1080p, 50 frames per second, not 60, not 30, not 24, 50, and he uses images that are obviously 720p quality, which when you zoom in or move around at all, it pixelates them. So and you know what? When I'm staring at them for 20 minutes, it becomes to get a little obnoxious.
Like, and look, you can make still images interesting visual. Like, I think, you know, there's lots of good editors who do stuff with manga panels. Like, I never animated any images in like my Main Abyss Bone Druid Idofront arc video, but like I do think I did some good editing there with the manga panels and the ways I moved them and arranged them. Like, you know, you can do stuff with still images, but there is nothing being done with the still images here, and it is and yeah, like he's complaining about it in the show when the show also does it better. They're like by far. I mean, you know, professional versus the amateur, but like. You know, again, for like the 5th time in the video, he's not practicing what he's preaching.
The pacing is just bad now. The characters are starting to become disinteresting. And I think now I'm starting to realize that as the show goes on, the things I liked about it are what it continues to rely on. Shonens typically need to constantly change and evolve in order to keep your attention, because if they don't change, you get this kind of shit. Characters with jokes that are annoying as fuck and overused to a point that it makes it painful to sit through. Plot points that aren't even half as interesting as the little lore you build with the concepts that you don't explore because you apparently didn't think that they were a big deal in this world you've built. And a significant drop in animation quality. I would give Season 1 an 8 out of 10. And from there, I think every single season has dropped one number each. So for this, I'm honestly feeling a 5 out of 10. If you liked this video and want to see more like it, please be sure to subscribe.
No.
No. Never again. Okay. Oh, it's finally over. Oh, okay. So, he says that, like, the series is like, it relies on these elements that it... But then he says
it's not changing. It's doing the darkest arc so far, the longest arc so far, but it's not changing or evolving any.
No, it has character deaths, like a lot of character deaths, but it's not changing anything any.
Doing nothing different from before, even though I don't.
But then he says he says it relies on things too much. But he wanted it before to explore these things that it quote unquote relied on too much.
It's like, and you know, again, he's complaining about the narrative when he kind of is very, you know, obviously missing some aspects of the narrative. So it's like, I don't know what he wants. I don't think he knows what he wants. He knows what he wants from the show. Like, maybe he just wasn't in a good place when he watched the show. Maybe going through the material again, reading the manga would, you know, shed new light on things and make him understand it better. Maybe it wouldn't. Maybe, I don't know.
It's like, but then he mentions that shonens should change, which is like it's a fundamental misunderstanding of like a lot of shonen series that like a lot of people who are normies will say, or people who don't like understand like they aren't analyzing things. Like Bleach is a prominent example where every single complaint about it is that every single arc is just Soul Society but worse. But the one arc everybody does not like generally is Fullbring. the one arc that fundamentally changes things.
And yeah, isn't structured like Soul Society, and what do you know?
Or there's Naruto. Naruto is another series that people say doesn't we'll throw this at, but part 2 of Naruto is fundamentally different from part 1, with a lot of things. It
the
changes.
whole dividing factor is Sasuke. Like Sasuke leaves and changes that changes like what the story then it focuses on for a long period of time. Like it's obviously different. Like it's a
One
growing up
Piece.
story. There's a fucking. Yeah, One Piece kind of, even if it remains, like, fundamentally, like, going on islands and having adventures, like, the threat, like, the New World has basically been this continuous adventure with, like, no, like, breaks in between, like, there's no place for, like, filler arcs or movies to happen, basically, because we follow every moment of these characters. Like, once they got out of Fishman Island, they hit a current, and they had Punk Hazard, and then they've just been going from every island is directly connected to each other events-wise from Punk Hazard onwards. Like, there's no... So that in itself is fundamentally different from part 1, never minding, like, how the series is handling growing up and, like, they're children in the first half, and now they're growing up as adults and being parent figures in the second half, and the tone of the story is different. Like, there's the panel in Wano of, like, from a start, woman about to kill her child and herself because it's better than starving to death in the village. Like, that's actually a fucking thing in the One Piece manga. Like, no, but it's not. It hasn't changed at all.
It's even more like, one a really good example is Hajime no Ippo, a series with over 1,000 chapters, longer than One Piece has been running since the 70s. I
thought it was 80s, 89.
You know what? Boomers don't have rights. Their numbers do not matter. It has been running for so long. Yet, if you read chapter 1 and read it now, so many things have changed. And the way the story is changing, and people have complained about the change, despite the fact that apparently shonens need to change in order to be good.
So yeah, are we done?
Do you want to read the comments real quick?
Oh,
the comments that were deleted, because there's one that I want to read.
Okay,
at
least
2.
Just the one. Or okay.
So, well, I think I have it. Well, basically, I have it downloaded, but he basically said something along the lines of, like, I put it on the screen right now. Triggered MHA fans can't handle opposing opinions or truth or something like that. And from what I understand, ironically, Memed understands that this video was rushed and admits that it was rushed and that he probably shouldn't have made it. But the fact that he hearted this comment implies that he agrees with what he said. That the only reason this video is getting hate is because MHA fans are triggered.
Which, if, again, we mentioned my video, I state very clear in the video that I am not an MHA fan, but I also don't think this video is good. And, like, is that the comment that says something like, oh wow, this nuanced video is getting disliked?
That's the one, the nuanced video. Yeah.
Which is, it's kind of not. It's the opposite of nuanced. In fact, it doesn't say anything. Like, it posits that it's saying things. You might even call it pretentious.
Oh.
Which is funny, considering the script that I helped with for a video on this very same channel. Because he's definitely trying to, like, again, like we commented on the elitism. He's putting on airs that he doesn't have. So
even more so is that, like, the original title of this video was it sure went downhill. It was changed to No Drip No Sauce in response to comments from people commenting No Drip No Sauce, which I've been saying.
Yeah, because the comments were referring to, they were quoting the line from the video, but also directing it at the video because, I think we can all agree that the video has no drip or no sauce because it's trying to say that things, but it's not saying anything. There is definitely no drip and there's definitely no sauce.
But it's also saying that MHA has elements, but at the same time has no elements.
But then it describes the elements for like a good third of the video, and then it says that it is and then. So the video has no drip, no sauce, even though it's claiming that MHA has no drip, no sauce. So
it's just it's something else, man. Basically, if you want to know everything not to do when making an analytical video or a review, this is the video to watch.
Yeah, so like I get, the purpose of this is, partly to get it off a chest because, like leaving a comment, no one cares, and this is 3 hours of video. Like, how do you get everything wrong? Hopefully that's the thing is, like, I do hope it's helpful to people, like, because we might do this with other videos, and I don't want it to be bullying, because this is a person with 2,000 subs. We both have 10 times as many subs as him individually, but like, he's asked for, he said, like, I didn't get any criticisms in the comments, so here's your criticism. A lot.
Like, if you guys have any videos you want us to cover, or your own videos, like, maybe. I don't want to pick on somebody who has like 10 subs, though. I don't want to pick on anybody who has like 10 subs. It's fucked up.
Well, even, like I said, like, I want to say the sub account is kind of arbitrary, but at the same, people, even if we say that, people are from the outward are going to be like, you're bullying a guy with 10 subs. And I don't know, maybe, like, I don't know. Like, this video, I legitimately can't say anything good about it. Like, there was one kind of point that's fine, and it's like the one time in the video they actually used it to back up a greater point that he has. But other than that, there's legitimately like nothing good in this video, and
the video's a cautionary tale.
Yeah, and I don't want I would love for this content creator to do better, but this ain't it. And maybe he found it helpful, maybe someone in the comments found it helpful. If people found it like funny or interesting, that's, I don't know, leave comments. I'm curious as to what you think, if we're succeeding in what we're trying to do, because like I said, helping anyone and getting getting it out there, like, because I guess maybe it's like an effective being a content creator where you have thoughts, and now that you, like, once you're familiar with having an audience, you like have to get them out there in a sense, like, as if we have podcasts and videos. Obviously, we have tons of areas we each have our own Discord servers. We have avenues to get our thoughts out there, and this is becoming another one, basically. So I don't know. I'm just curious as to what people think about it. And I don't know. We'll see. So
yeah. All right. Have a good day, everybody. Make sure to like and subscribe, and make sure you give me clout. And
before he backstabs me.
Yeah, and when I stab him, all the dripping sauce is gonna come out of his fucking back.
Out of this withered husk in your dreams.
All right. See you guys. Goodbye.